My spaceship has been stranded, but there is an Earth-like planet in front of me, so I want to abandon my past life and live an easy life. 120. Rudy, who worked as a delivery person in space, got stranded due to an accident in the warp gate. He eventually stumbled upon a planet with an Earth-like environment but couldn't return home. As he More Rudy, who worked as a delivery person in space, got stranded due to an accident in the warp gate. He eventually stumbled upon a planet with an Earth-like environment but couldn't return home. As he landed on the planet and started to explore, he discovered that it was a fantasy world where magic had evolved. It doesn't really matter what Rudy does or finds on this planet, as the characters, the author, and the readers can all enjoy a leisurely journey back. Ch1. An inorganic, white room. In the center of a small room, a boy was sleeping alone. The double-sized bed on which the boy slept was covered with a transparent case, and multiple cords were connected to the wall from below. Inside the case, the temperature was maintained at 31.6 degrees, which induced a state of hibernation in the body and prevented aging through cryopreservation. The boy inside the transparent case was in a deep sleep like a dead person, with his growth halted. His face still retained a childish look, but he had a handsome appearance. His skin was as white as snow, and his thin body was covered in lean muscles without any excess fat. His hair was silver like threads and shone brightly, reaching up to his neck. His appearance had an artistic beauty that was no less than that of a beautiful boy depicted in a painting. The sleeping boy was subjected to physical modification anti-aging treatment, and his lifespan had been extended to nearly 500 years. The boy's age was 81, but due to the extended lifespan and being in cryo-sleep, his physical and mental appearance was around 15 years old. The boy's name was Rudy, and he was the only crew member on the spaceship Nike. Suddenly, an electronic sound rang from the cryo-sleep bed. After a moment of silence, 5 minutes later, the transparent case covering the bed made a sound like that of steam pressure and split into two, hiding under the bed. Rudy's skin came into contact with the outside air and changed to a more lively color. After a while, he slowly opened his eyelids. His eyes were odd-colored, with the right eye being blue and the left eye being a green color. However, the left eye was not real but had an implanted prosthetic. The asymmetrical color of his eyes created a mysterious atmosphere and further highlighted his beautiful face. "Good morning, Master," a voice called out to Rudy from the speakers that were installed in the room. As he sat up and stretched his body, he responded in a slightly high-pitched boy's soprano voice. The voice belonged to HAL 200X, the main AI that controlled the spaceship's navigation and crew's life support systems. HAL 200X had been a good partner to Rudy since he purchased the ship 50 years ago. "Have we arrived at our destination?" Rudy asked HAL, and as he placed his bare feet on the white floor, he pulled them back once due to its coldness. "No, not yet," HAL replied through the speakers. Upon hearing the response, Rudy paused his movement to walk. He looked up at the ceiling where HAL's voice came from, puzzled. "I have encountered a problem that I cannot solve. It's not an emergency, so I will explain it to you when you arrive at the main bridge," HAL continued. "I see. But before that, I have one question. Is the problem happening now or is it already too late?" Rudy asked. HAL remained silent for a moment before answering. "Both." "Shouldn't have asked." Rudy shook his head at HAL's response. He then changed into a bodysuit that fit his body perfectly and headed to the main bridge. As Rudy sat in the pilot's seat on the main bridge, he listened to HAL's explanation while slowly turning the paper cup of warm coffee in his hand, lost in thought. Even after HAL finished the report, Rudy stayed motionless for a while as if he had been asleep, but then he let out a deep sigh and opened his eyes. "So, let me get this straight. Due to a jump gate malfunction, we didn't arrive at our intended star system but instead jumped into an unknown one?" Rudy asked incredulously. "Yes, Master," HAL replied in an emotionless tone. Rudy let out another sigh and reflected on the job he had accepted. As a space transporter, Rudy and his spaceship, the Nike, were hired to deliver essentials and equipment to terraformed planets. The job he received from Immigration Control was not particularly difficult. The target star system was located far from the central hub of the Galactic Trade Network, but there was no information about pirates in the vicinity of the delivery destination. However, The distance from the star system where the job was accepted to the star system where the delivery was to be made was about a 3-year journey. So Rudy had selected a safe interstellar route and relied on Hal to navigate while he went into cryosleep. According to Hal's explanation, the problem occurred 6 months after Rudy went to sleep. As Nike jumped through the jump gate and warped, the gate suddenly exploded. Fortunately, Nike suffered no damage as it had just entered warp space. However, due to the explosion, Nike had jumped to an unknown star system that was not on the coordinates. I don't know why the jump gate exploded. Was the Empire's management sloppy? The cause is unknown. However, I don't think the Empire's management is sloppy. Based on recent news, it's likely that it was a terrorist attack with a 95% probability. I see. I didn't worry about pirates, but I didn't expect terrorists. So, what about the distress signal? It has already been sent, but there has been no response. Is there a chance of success for returning? It's pointless to ask, isn't it? It's astronomically low. But would you like to know? I feel like crying from my bad luck, so let's not. First of all, I think you're lucky just to be alive. If you want to know the success rate of returning, please let me know. That's called bad luck in general society. And please keep the numbers to yourself. Unfortunately, as an AI, I don't have emotions, so I'll save it as data. Rudy laughed and shrugged his shoulders at Hal's emotionless response. But I never thought I'd become a Flying Dutchman wandering at this age. Even if I hurry back, it'll be a mission failure. I won't be able to pay the compensation, and I'll be separated from this ship and sent to forced labor on an undeveloped planet. Don't worry. First of all, you can't return, so you don't have to worry about that. Rudy grimaced at Hal's response. It's a relief. There's no point in wandering like this. First, we need to decide on a destination where we can get supplies. I have one suggestion. Please take a look at this. A holographic screen appears in front of Rudy, showing a star map of the unfamiliar star system where Nike is located. I made a map of the star system where Nike is currently located while the master was sleeping. You're quick-witted. Thank you. Rudy intended to be sarcastic, but instead, he was thanked and shrugged his shoulders. Looking at the screen, he saw that there were 10 planets in the star system, centered around a star. Looks like a solar system like ours. Yes, Master, and this 4th planet is an Earth-like planet with breathable air. We are currently in the Sol solar system. The Sol solar system refers to the solar system with a sun at the center, around which Earth-like planets revolve. What? As Rudy stared at the 4th planet on the screen with wide eyes, Hal projected an enlarged image of the same planet on another screen. The planet on the screen was a blue planet with a medium-sized satellite. Is it possible for humans to live there without terraforming? Exactly. Therefore, I propose that we investigate this planet first. Rudy became calm at Hal's response and slowly nodded after thinking for a while. I can hardly believe it, but it's better than doing nothing. Please navigate to the vicinity of that planet. Yes, Master. In response to Rudy's command, the spaceship Nike began to move. For a while, Rudy gazed at the shining blue planet on the screen. CH2, the star of Mana. Nike has been stationary at the Lagrange point of the 4th planet for 3 days. During this time, Nike sent a ground observation satellite into the planet's orbit to collect information. When Hal analyzed the observed data and reported it to Rudy, an astonishing piece of information was revealed. There are intelligent life forms here? Yes, Master. They are at a primitive level, but the inhabitants of this planet possess intellectual capabilities and have built a civilization. Display their appearance on the screen. Yes, Master. A screen appeared in front of Rudy, showing ground photos taken from the exploration satellite. The photos showed human-like beings living in small settlements. They lived in wooden buildings and wore primitive clothing that looked like something out of a fantasy movie. Their appearance is similar to that of humans. According to the investigation results, approximately 20% of the intelligent life forms have the same appearance as you, Master. The other 20%? Please show me. Another screen appeared, showing a different species that looked different from humans. The long ears are similar to the elder people. The protruding belly looks like the Draconians, and the cat-faced beings are the Neko people. They were originally mutant species that gained independence. What about the dogs? Was there something? In terms of appearance, they are closer to the Walder people, who are similar to the mutant Neko people. However, The relationship with them is unclear as we have not conducted a genetic investigation. Are different species living together on the same planet? There must be constant conflict. Due to insufficient data, it is currently unclear. Rudy shrugged lightly and drank his coffee. So, what about the remaining 60% of the population? Here it is. The screen changed, showing ugly and monstrous beings. Their appearance is horrendous. The screen displayed creatures with a height similar to that of children, with green skin and ferocious faces. We cannot provide information on their appearance, according to our investigation. These species seem to be hostile towards the human-like beings mentioned earlier. We have confirmed several settlements that have been attacked by them. Additionally, there are similar species to these creatures, and the human-like beings are under threat from them as well. These creatures also fall under the category of intelligent life forms. I suppose they could be considered goblin-like in appearance. When Rudy referred to goblin-like creatures, he was talking about a race from another galaxy that had invaded from a galaxy that was hostile to the Galactic Empire to which he belonged. However, the goblin-like creatures on this planet appeared more primitive in nature. Thanks to these creatures attacking, it seems like even if they're from different species, they're united. After analyzing the current data, the possibility of that is over 70%. Rudy nodded and absent-mindedly stroked his silver hair before resting his chin on his hand. This planet seems like a microcosm of the Galactic Empire's space. That idea is generally correct. It would be interesting to land on the planet. Rudy laughed lightly as he thought about the unknown planet. However, Hal quickly shot down his idea. There is one problem with Master landing on this planet. What is it? Rudy looked up at the ceiling as Hal's voice echoed through the room. A new screen appeared in front of him, displaying a pie chart. Please refer to this chart displaying the properties of the planet's atmosphere. The chart showed that the atmosphere was composed of 77.9% nitrogen, 20.1% oxygen, 0.037% carbon dioxide, and approximately 1% water vapor. With 1% marked as unknown. Rudy frowned at the last piece of data. What does the unknown represent? According to our investigation, it is an unknown element not listed in the data. Additionally, there are traces of the element being used by the inhabitants of this planet in building their civilization. Please provide a more detailed explanation. Yes, Master. An example of this is displayed here. Hal switched the screen and played a video obtained from a surveillance satellite. The footage showed humans creating fire from their bare hands and fighting goblins. This looks like the magic from a fantasy movie I watched a long time ago. Is this planet a non-scientific world that deviates from reality? Unfortunately, this is reality. As an AI, I cannot understand the shock of being unable to return. But if you are experiencing high levels of stress due to not being able to accept reality, I recommend visiting the medical room for a sedative. No, it's okay. Sorry for interrupting, Rudy replied, jokingly. Rudy shrugged his shoulders at Haas' failed attempt at humor. To continue from earlier, it seems that the humans on this planet have adapted to their environment and gained non-scientific powers by accepting this unknown element. Let's call it mana. Based on Master's use of the word magic, it is believed that they acquire these powers by absorbing mana, and if Master were to land on the surface in their current state, the probability of dying from mana toxicity within a year would be over 99%. So, does that mean a vaccine can be created in this current state? Rudy asked. Yes, Master, the AI responded. Later, please go to the medical room. We have prepared antibiotics that can resist mana, as well as vaccines to protect against airborne pathogens. 2 days after administration, it will be possible for Master to survive on the surface. Got it. So, does that mean I can also use magic-like powers? Rudy asked. Unfortunately, that is not possible, Hal responded. Why not? Rudy asked. The humans on this planet accumulate mana in their bodies by inhaling it from the air from a young age and release it to use their powers. Therefore, even if you don't die from mana toxicity after the vaccine, you won't be able to use any powers as you haven't been accumulating mana since childhood. It's like the maximum MP in a game, so to speak. That's too bad, Rudy replied, disappointed. However, it doesn't mean that you can never use magic. If you land on this planet and investigate, there is a 50% chance that you can use magic, Hal added. 50%? That's not bad. I'll keep my hopes up, Rudy said. I don't believe it, but please pray to the gods. the AI replied. Ignoring Hal's response, Rudy stood up. "Well then, I'll leave the investigation to you," Rudy said. "Yes, Master." Rudy left the cockpit and headed to the medical room to receive the vaccine. CH3, aiming for example, life. 2 days after receiving the vaccine, Rudy changed into a different set of clothes in his private room, removing his usual bodysuit. The new undergarments he put on had a feature that automatically regulated body temperature, allowing for comfortable wear even in desert or frigid environments. They were also equipped with antibacterial functions. Next, he put on black pants and a long coat over the undergarments. The long coat extended to just above his knees and had a hood attached to the back of the collar. Although made of fabric, it was coated with a strengthened layer and had shock-absorbing sheets, making it resistant to the impact of actual firearms. It also had an antibacterial feature. Finally, he put on long boots and attached leg guards that covered up to his knees over them. The black leg guards had thickened knee areas for durability and, when worn over the boots, prevented the entry of sand or water. Both the leg guards and boots were coated with a strengthened layer and had an antibacterial feature, with the added bonus of deodorizing effects for the boots. "That's a lot of unnecessary clothing. And I look like I'm going to a funeral in all black," Rudy muttered, grabbing the hem of his long coat. At that moment, Hal's voice came through the speaker on the ceiling. "Except for the leg guards, the clothing was made to fit the dress code of adventurers or mercenaries from a location far from here." "Why not match the dress code of the area we're going to?" Rudy asked. "If we matched the local dress code, there would be a possibility of revealing our true identities. Therefore, I set the scenario where the master is a wandering adventurer who is washed ashore from afar," Hal explained. "Quite an elaborate plan," Rudy replied, shrugging his shoulders. "Also, I have prepared the weapons that Master requested," Hal added, and at the same time, a ball-shaped anti-gravity drone entered the room through the open door. The drone lowered a short sword and a bow and arrow onto the table from a suspended platform. "Oh, these are it," Rudy said. Rudy believed that if he had electronic weapons on this planet, he would stand out too much. Therefore, he asked Hal to create primitive weapons that would fit the civilization of this planet. Rudy traced the flat part of the double-edged short sword with his left finger. The blade length was 45 centimeters, and the streamlined design of the handle, which was slightly narrower, was both practical and beautiful. At first glance, it looked like a carefully designed iron sword, but the inside was completely different. It was made of super-hard ceramics with the same strength as diamonds, and the blade did not chip even when struck against rocks. The blade of the sword had a special feature that made it easy to clean without the need for washing. The handle is also of high quality, with an antibacterial and mold-resistant feature. Rudy put the short sword into its sheath and attached it to his belt. He then picked up the bow and checked the tension of the string. The bow looked like a simple wooden longbow, but the stabilizers and other components were minimized to avoid drawing attention. It was made of special carbon and was far superior to a regular bow. The string was also reinforced and could not be cut even with a blade. "The arrowheads are made of iron, but I put small grenades in the bag. Attach them to the points when you use them," Hal reported. "That sounds dangerous," Rudy said. While listening to Hal's report, Rudy strapped the bow and quiver onto his back. He also brought portable food, nutritional supplements, a small knife, a lighter, and solid bouillon cubes. Local currency that could be used was also prepared. "Can we use this currency?" Rudy asked, tilting his head as he had never seen it before, having only used electronic payments before. "It has a primitive structure, so it was easy to counterfeit," Hal replied. "If I really wanted to, I could destabilize the economy of this planet," Rudy joked. "I have no interest in such matters," Hal replied, seemingly uninterested in Rudy's joke. Finally, Rudy activated his left eye implant. Rudy's brain was digitized, combining processing power and memory storage connected to his real brain. The left eye implant, connected to the electronic brain, had various functions available through external media. Rudy projected a screen that was invisible to others from the left eye implant. Using his gaze as a pointer, he found the necessary applications. He began installing the required skills into the electronic brain. With this installation, Rudy was able to gain professional-level abilities without any physical training. The 3 skills installed were Galactic Empire Integrated Combat Swordsmanship, Archery, and survival. Galactic Empire integrated combat swordsmanship was a skill used in close combat on the battlefield. However, it was a minor skill because most battles were won by gunfire. Archery was a skill in sports that used a bow. Rudy's left eye implant also had a telescopic function. With this skill and function combined, he could theoretically shoot small targets from a distance of 300 meters. Survival was primarily a military skill installed by ground troops during deployment. It was military use, but it was also available to civilians. It provided knowledge and skills necessary to survive, such as outdoor movement, food procurement, and water sourcing. In addition to these three, Rudy installed the language used on this planet, which was collected by a stealth ground reconnaissance vehicle. The language Master just installed is designed to only allow rudimentary conversation at the landing zone. Is this also part of the settings? Rudy asked, making a face, and received an affirmative answer. Master is a wandering adventurer from afar, Hal responded. You really go out of your way for unnecessary details, Rudy said. Thank you, Hal replied. I'm not complimenting you, Rudy muttered. After completing all preparations, Rudy left the room and headed towards the landing craft. Rudy sat in the cockpit of the landing craft, finishing the preparations for takeoff. Suddenly, through the onboard mic, Hal spoke to him. Master, are you ready to depart? Yeah, I'm ready whenever. By the way, Master, I have a question, Hal continued. What is it? Rudy asked. What do you plan to do on this planet? Hal inquired. Rudy's lips curled into a smirk at the question. He spread his right thumb and pinky, twirled them, and made the shark gesture towards the camera. I'm going to throw away my old life and live easy, Rudy said with a grin. The hatch of the craft opened, and Rudy's vessel took off into space. It accelerated towards the planet and then entered its atmosphere, descending towards the surface. CH-4, Dragon Chaser. A landing craft flies through the atmosphere and into the night sky. Outside, thousands of stars twinkle and a bright, white moon illuminates the Earth. Rudy is used to flying through space but is not familiar with flying within the atmosphere. He struggles to grasp the distance from the ground and relies on the altimeter. Checking his current location on the LCD monitor in the cockpit, it seems he is flying over a dense forest. Hal had mentioned his destination was in the southwest direction from here. As Rudy changes course, a warning sound blares from the speaker in the cockpit. What's going on? There's a flying life form approaching the landing craft. Hal's voice comes through the speaker, as they monitor the situation from Nike. A life form. It's a flying reptile over 300 meters in length. Oh, no. Rudy's face contorts in alarm at Hal's warning. The landing craft is a civilian vessel without any weapons, leaving them defenseless and vulnerable to attack. Hal, project the image of the creature. Yes, Master. I'll send the thermal graphic image from above. Since it's nighttime, the usual cameras won't work, and Hal transfers the thermal graphic image onto the LCD monitor in the landing craft's cockpit. The monitor displays the silhouette of a giant reptile with wings, soaring through the sky. Could it be a dragon? Rudy exclaims at the sight. Rudy had never actually seen a dragon before, but he knew of them. The elusive creature appears in space once every few decades. It can grow over 10 kilometers long and is known for its cruel and vicious personality. It can survive in the airless vacuum of space and, once it appears, it destroys any spacecraft or space station in its line of sight. Even attacks by space armies are futile, as the dragon can suddenly walk away, mocking its attackers before disappearing. When a dragon appears, the news spreads throughout the entire universe, and even Rudy, who travels through space, was not immune to hearing about it through the news reports. I cannot be certain without further investigation, but it's possible that it's a juvenile, Hal suggests. We don't have time to investigate, and we have no way to defend ourselves. We have to escape. Rudy replies. The mysterious life form may offer a reward if they can investigate it, but their priority right now is to save their lives. Rudy increases the landing craft's speed in attempts to escape, but the dragon is faster and quickly catches up. Only 1 minute until contact. I'll transfer the image captured by the landing craft's camera to the LCD monitor, Hal reports. Damn it. Rudy curses, looking at the monitor displaying a blue-scaled dragon illuminated by moonlight. He finds the dragon beautiful, but it's clear that the creature perceives the landing craft as an enemy and is not in a peaceful mood. Why is it targeting our ship? Rudy asks. My guess is that it's trying to eliminate us because we've invaded its territory, Hal replies. We're just flying through the air. Rudy protests. Perhaps it was provoked by the flames from the landing craft's engines and took it as a threat? Hal suggests. That's not fair. As Rudy lamented, the dragon rammed into the landing craft. The impact almost threw his body out, and the seat belt dug into his body. Ouch! Rudy gritted his teeth and moved the craft to the left. The dragon tried to ram it again, but failed and ended up flying alongside the landing craft. Rudy's eyes met the dragon's golden eyes. Despite their radiance, the sight of the dragon's overwhelming violence made Rudy tremble. The dragon flew alongside him and rotated its body in midair. It whipped its enormous tail, which was over 80 meters long, like a whip towards the landing craft. We can't avoid that length, Rudy thought. He didn't flee but instead reversed the landing craft towards the direction of the dragon. The raised tail grazed the landing craft. A sonic boom was generated from the tail that surpassed the speed of sound, and the landing craft was pushed towards the dragon. Then, as if a ball had been pitched like a fastball, the landing craft hit the dragon's face directly. The dragon roared and twisted its body, caught off guard by the unexpected attack. Rudy felt the impact of the sonic boom from the left, then received the opposite impact from the dragon's ramming attack, causing him to spin around dizzyingly. If Rudy's clothing hadn't been designed to absorb shocks, and if the landing craft's inertia control hadn't worked, he would have been minced by the attack. Let's hide now, he thought. Hal took over the landing craft and steered it towards the forest while Rudy lost consciousness. It landed and hid in the forest, turning off all the lights. 5 minutes later, the dragon recovered and looked around, but there was no sign of the landing craft anywhere. Once the dragon lost sight of the landing craft, it roared and circled in the sky. That was a close call, Rudy sighed as he regained consciousness, hearing Hal's emotionless voice. Should I wait inside the ship until morning or venture out now? Walking through an unknown planet's forest at night was dangerous, and I didn't know what could come out. Therefore, I decided to wait. But how long would that dragon be around? Rudy checked the LCD monitor. The dragon was still circling nearby. To find his current location, Rudy enlarged the map on the LCD monitor. He found a building in the forest about 80 kilometers to the west of his current location. What do you think, Master? Hal asked. Let's sleep until morning. After the dragon is gone, move the landing craft close to the building we found, and hide there quietly, Rudy replied. As soon as he landed on the planet, Rudy decided to take a nap after being humiliated by the dragon. Good night, Hal replied, and Rudy left the cockpit to rest in sleeping quarters. 2 hours after Rudy fell asleep, the dragon gave up and returned to its nest. Hal moved the landing craft 9 kilometers away from the building Rudy found and launched a reconnaissance drone to start scouting the building. From data sent by the drone, Hal determined that the building was an old-generation spacecraft. CH-5 Goblins Spaceship. Upon awakening, Rudy frowned as he listened to Hal's report in the small dining area of the landing craft while having breakfast. He was eating a balanced stick bar with raisins and yogurt, his favorite. Yes, Master. I will send the data, Hal replied. Hal projected the image of the spaceship sent by the drone onto the monitor screen attached to the wall. The spaceship was over 700 meters long, covered in ferns, and had holes in the metal casing in some places, indicating that it had been discarded long ago. Although its shape is old, due to its size, it could be a cruiser-class battleship, Rudy said. Based on the data, it is a cruiser of the Galactic Empire from around 1,200 years ago, Hal replied. This spaceship could be a crucial clue in investigating this planet. It was worth checking out, so Rudy crossed his arms, pondering, and decided that his destination was the mysterious spaceship. Are there any signs of life within the spaceship? Rudy asked. At present, there is only one moving life form detected. Whether it is an intelligent life form is unclear, Hal replied. If that's the case, it's dangerous to go with the landing craft without any weapons. Can we still maintain communication upon arrival at the location? Rudy inquired. Wireless communication is possible. However, since we have not installed communication satellites yet, communication will be impossible once the landing craft is more than 10 kilometers away, Hal explained. Currently, the landing craft was located 9 kilometers away from the mysterious spaceship. In that case, It should be alright. Understood. I'll go and check it out. Please check if the craft is functioning properly in the meantime, Rudy instructed. Yes, Master. Please take care, Hal replied. After ending the conversation with Hal, Rudy opened the door of the landing craft and took his first step on the ground. The ground was covered in soft grass and moss, unlike a carpet. The refreshing natural wind blowing against his cheeks felt great. Well then. Rudy took a deep breath and enjoyed the fresh air of early spring entering his lungs. After refreshing his mood, Rudy checked the analog finger watch made of platinum on his left ring finger. It reflected the morning sun and showed 7 o'clock local time. T/N. If we do manage space travel, then this ring will be nice to have. Before departing, Rudy changed his left eye implant to thermal mode. There were no large enemies nearby that attacked humans. He turned off the thermal mode and projected a screen to display the map, locating the abandoned spaceship at its destination. Let's go, Rudy said. Using the survival skill installed in his electronic brain, Rudy walked effortlessly towards the west in the forest. 1 hour after walking in the forest, Rudy had walked half the distance to the destination when he found water seeping out of a rock. Normally, he should avoid drinking untreated water, but he had been walking for a long time and was thirsty. He scooped water in his hand and analyzed the water content with his left eye implant. No harmful toxins or parasites. Oh? There's also mana in the water, Rudy said. Rudy judged that the water was safe to drink because there were no harmful components such as E. coli. As for mana, if it were harmful, he would have died by now. He scooped water again and drank it this time. The cold natural water was delicious, even though it was just water. As Rudy rested, he heard rustling leaves behind him. He quickly turned around and used his left eye in thermal mode to confirm. He found a creature about the size of a child in the bushes. Looking around, he realized that there were many of the same creatures surrounding him. 4, 5, 6, 7. They had surrounded him. Judging from their body shape, they were likely goblins that he saw on the monitor before landing. They probably weren't friendly. Rudy slowly stood up, rhythmically tapping the handle of the short sword on his waist and starting to sway his body. They were coming. Feeling a change in the presence from behind, he gathered momentum and rotated his body, drawing my sword from my waist and mowing down my attacker. Rudy's attack severed the goblin's wrist, and the goblin screamed, dropping the club it had been holding to the ground. Trying to stop the bleeding, the goblin pressed its arm where its hand had been severed. However, the blood flowing from the cut did not stop, and it rained blood in the air. Rudy delivered the finishing blow by slicing through the goblin's shoulder. The goblin, bleeding profusely from its shoulder, collapsed to the ground. It really does look like a goblin tribe. Rudy frowned at the bleeding goblin, convulsing uncontrollably. Space transportation is a pretty dangerous profession, and Rudy has fought pirates who attacked him several times. Based on that experience, he had no qualms about killing. It wasn't like he enjoyed being a murderer. He just thought that if someone came to kill him, whether they were goblins or humans, it was only natural to kill them. He sensed a presence from behind again and turned around. This time, 2 goblins armed themselves and attacked Rudy. The goblin on the right swung a club at him, and Rudy met it with his short sword. The reinforced ceramic blade of the short sword was sharp, and when it sliced the club in half, the goblin was surprised and blinked. However, Rudy couldn't respond in time to the goblin on the left, who attacked with a rusty sword. He instinctively put his left arm forward. Shit. Even as he thought that, it was already too late. Rudy's action was a mistake due to his lack of experience. The goblin he thought he had cut laughed at him. However, he quickly realized something was wrong and tilted his head. Because, despite having been cut, Rudy felt no sensation, and he didn't even flinch. In other words, his attack didn't work. The goblin, realizing this, twisted its already ugly face. That's some good coating. Rudy praised the clothing made by Hal in his mind. And then, he switched gears and counterattacked. Grabbing the left shoulder of the bewildered goblin, he plunged his short sword into its heart. The goblin looked at the short sword embedded in its chest, coughing up blood and convulsing. He quickly withdrew the short sword from its body and swung it in a flash, decapitating the goblin on the right. Immediately, he leapt backward, putting some distance between himself and the 2 remaining goblins. The decapitated goblin had a dumbfounded look on its face before its head slowly fell back. At the same time, Blood gushed out like a fountain from its severed neck. There were 4 goblins left. As their comrade was taken down, they screeched and cursed at him. He tried to calm his excited heart. He shook the blood off his short sword and twirled it lightly in his right hand. He beckoned the goblins with his left hand. Provoked by his actions, the 3 goblins, except for the one at the back, became enraged and charged at him. As the goblins approached within 2 meters of him, his electronic brain kicked into high gear, initiating rapid processing. The approaching goblins seemed to move in slow motion, giving him an advantage in their slowed movements. To explain, he can force his electronic brain to enter a state of extreme concentration called the zone, which increases his kinetic vision and actions up to 30 times their normal speed. However, the drawback is that he needs a 30-minute charge time before reusing it, and the usage time is limited to 5 seconds. After that, it automatically reverts back to normal. In the world of slow motion, he slipped through the gap between the 2 goblins, swinging his short sword left and right, and severed their necks. Then, he plunged his short sword into the throat of the 3rd goblin and rotated his body, turning behind it. As the zone ended and the world returned to normal, he cleaned the blood off his short sword and sheathed it behind the backs of the 3 goblins. The goblins turned around upon hearing the sound, but at that moment, blood spurted out from their severed necks. The goblins fell to the ground, unable to comprehend what had just happened, and passed away. The last remaining goblin panicked and began to flee after witnessing its companions being killed. Rudy, considering it bothersome to call for his comrades, drew his bow and arrows from his back. Closing his right eye, he switched the implant on his left eye to zoom mode and targeted the goblin. He released an arrow towards the goblin's back, and the arrow flew in a gentle arc, piercing through the back of the goblin's head. After stowing his bow, Rudy checked the possessions on the goblin's corpse: a rusty sword and a wooden club. He's only wearing a loincloth. He would freeze to death in winter. Rudy shrugged towards the corpse before walking back into the forest. Ch6. Something like a crocodile. An hour after the battle with the goblins, Rudy had moved closer to the spacecraft's destination and was hiding in nearby bushes. Moving through the forest was exhausting, but for some reason, he didn't feel any fatigue. He thought it was strange but shrugged it off with a whatever. "Hal, can you hear me?" He contacted Hal through his electronic brain. "Yes, Master. I can hear you," Hal replied. "I've arrived at the destination." "How are things on your end?" Rudy asked. "The impact caused some damage, but nothing fatal. I can return to Nike at any time," Hal reported. "Understood. I'm going to infiltrate the ship now." "Send the reconnaissance drone over to me," Rudy ordered. "Yes, Master," Hal confirmed. A gravity-defying drone, which had been waiting in another location, appeared next to Rudy. "If the data isn't lost, we should be able to obtain information about this planet," Rudy said. "Be careful," Hal cautioned. "If anything happens, I'll contact you," Rudy assured Hal. He ended the communication with Hal and began walking towards the spacecraft with the drone. The hatch of the spacecraft was closed and couldn't be opened. However, there were large cracks on the underside of the ship, as if the ground had been scraped away, and there was a crack big enough for a person to enter. Could this be a crash site? Rudy thought as he looked at the marks and turned his gaze towards the back of the spacecraft. By switching his left eye implant to telescope mode, he could confirm that the indentations caused by the impact stretched for hundreds of meters. According to Hal, this spacecraft was about 1,200 years old. It was likely that it had come to this planet around that time. As Rudy entered the ship, he found a dark hallway that was out of the reach of any light. He commanded the drone to turn on its lights, illuminating the decaying hallway that extended into the distance. The walls were covered in ferns that had invaded from the outside. Walking a little further down the hallway, Rudy found a terminal panel peeking out from between the overgrown ferns. He tried manipulating the panel, but there was no response. It was a product of 1,200 years ago, so the power source must have died a long time ago. Rudy had anticipated this from the terrible state of the exterior walls. He examined the characters written on the end panel and recognized them as the same language used by the Galactic Empire. Rudy was convinced that this was an Imperial ship. He decided to secure his safety and search for the ship's AI control room. He never expected to be in this situation so soon after disembarking from the shuttle. He regretted not bringing his gun with him. Nevertheless, He had no choice but to continue walking towards the back of the ship. As he progressed further, he noticed bones scattered on the dirty and hardened plastic floor. Upon closer inspection, he saw that they had been crushed, likely by a carnivorous creature. Judging by the size, it was probably a goblin or a creature of similar size. He couldn't determine the age of the bones immediately, but he had encountered goblins on his way to the ship, and there was a spaceship nearby that could serve as their habitat. Yet, he saw no signs of goblin activity within the ship. He came to the conclusion, carnivorous creatures inhabit this ship. Before he could think any further, he heard the growls and footsteps of a beast coming from the depths of the hallway. Rudy glared in the direction of the noise and slowly stood up. The face appears to be illuminated by the drone's light. Standing over 2.5 meters tall, the creature had a quadrupedal body and a face similar to that of a crocodile, with its upper jaw split into 3 sections. Its mouth could easily devour Rudy's head with one bite. The body was covered in black fur with scattered patches of exposed gray, rough skin resembling that of a rock. Yellow eyes with shattered black pupils were shaped like those of a predator, welcoming Rudy with a cheerful gaze. "Wow, it's looking at me like I'm delicious," Rudy thought, observing the creature's saliva dripping from its mouth. He drew his short sword and held it up in front of him with his right hand while commanding the drone to turn off the light. As the corridor darkened, Rudy switched his left eye implant to night vision, capturing the image of the beast in the darkness. Suddenly plunged into darkness, the creature growled and searched for Rudy, sensing his killing intent as he turned to the left. In the darkness, Rudy swung his sword towards the beast. His short sword struck the upper jaw of the creature, but its tough skin deflected the blade. Impressed by the creature's defense, Rudy realized that it was blind in the dark, giving him the upper hand. He swung his short sword again, aiming for the creature's chin, but it was once again deflected. The beast sensed Rudy's position from the direction of his attack and opened its mouth to bite him. Rudy's pupils dilated as the creature's saliva-soaked mouth loomed in front of him. He used his short sword to strike the creature's face and leapt backward to his right. After the initial attack, both Rudy and the nameless beast back away from each other. Rudy readies his sword while the beast growls. His attacks were ineffective, and what's with that toughness? This sword can cut through rocks. Rudy swallows hard and glares at the beast, who recognizes that Rudy is not a weak prey and returns his gaze. In the dark corridor, the fight between one man and one beast begins. Rudy repeatedly strikes the beast's body with his sword, but its skin is as hard as iron, deflecting his attacks. The beast opens its creepy mouth, attempting to bite and scratch with its claws. Rudy uses his sword to fend off its attacks and occasionally kicks it back with his boots. Both Rudy and the beast move forward simultaneously. Their weapons collide, producing sparks. As the clash continues, Rudy starts to give way under the pressure. Rudy adds variation to his sword movements and catches the beast off guard with a left high kick to the jaw before leaping back. After more than 10 minutes of fighting without a decisive blow, Rudy takes a moment to think and backs away from the beast. He realizes that the situation is unclear, as the beast's eyes have adjusted to the dark, making their conditions even. Should he use the zone? No, that may not guarantee a win. Then, Rudy reaches into the backpack on his back with his left hand. Turn on the light. At Rudy's command, the drone behind him shines a light. The beast's eyes are momentarily blinded by the light, and it turns its face away. Rudy's electronic brain begins to process at high speed. Despite the sluggish world around him, as soon as he approaches the beast, he throws a small grenade from his bag into the beast's mouth. Normally, the grenade would not explode without significant impact, but Rudy activated the zone and threw it 3 times faster than normal. As a result, when the grenade entered the beast's mouth at over 200 kilometers per hour, it touched its epiglottis and exploded from the inside. Rudy remains cautious and observes the aftermath. When the smoke clears, the beast's body lies on the ground, having been blown away from the inside, and spasms. This should kill it for sure. Rudy sheaths his short sword. He reflects a little, wondering if he went too far with the grenade. Hal, can you hear me? Sensitivity is good. There was a ferocious carnivorous animal inside. No other animals were eaten by this one. Move the landing craft over here. Yes, Master, I will move the landing craft. After ending the communication with Hal, Rudy bows to the dead beast in respect and proceeds down the corridor. CH7. The unseen guest. In silence, Rudy walks down a dimly lit corridor illuminated by drone lights. The AI control room is located in the center of the spaceship, the cockpit is in the front, and the engine room is in the back. Regardless of the ship, the structure is the same throughout the ages. Rudy was headed towards the center of the spaceship. As he moved, he found several doors and attempted to open them. Doors that were previously locked with electronic locks when the power was on were now unlocked because the power was off. However, the hydraulic doors were heavy and required a lot of strength to open. Moreover, as soon as he opened the doors, he realized they were empty shells. After checking a few rooms, Rudy deemed it a waste of time and passed by the remaining ones. Rudy moved towards the core of the ship and stood in front of a larger door compared to the others. On the plate next to the door, it said Main AI Room. This must be the room where the military AI is located. If it was still alive, it would be hard-headed. Rudy imagined the personality of the military AI as he grabbed the handle of the door. Rudy pulled the door, but it didn't budge. However, he didn't give up and put more force into it. Then, either the rusted part came off, or the door finally gave way with a loud noise. In the center of the room was a huge cylindrical server. Rudy stepped into the room and looked up at the server that seemed to reach the ceiling. The base of the server extended to the wall, and the part that was 2 meters high from the floor was cylindrical and extended to the ceiling. I've never seen anything like this before. It must be an old model, Rudy thought. Rudy estimated that the base was for memory storage, and the cylinder contained multiple computational devices. He approached the console of the server and pressed the power switch, but the server didn't start, and a quiet time passed in the room. Rudy looked at the non-functioning server and thought to himself, I guess it won't work. But whether it's because it's military or an old model, I don't know, but it's so big that I can't take it back to Nike. What's needed is memory storage, not the computational devices. However, due to the size of the base, which cannot be removed from the room, Rudy sighed in frustration. Master, we have arrived, came the communication from Hal to Rudy's electronic brain. It seems the lander has been moved next to the spaceship. You're watching through the drones, right? What do you think of this thing? Rudy asked. It's quite an old model. It probably has intelligence, but it may not have a flexible mindset, Hal replied. Well, leaving that aside, I was planning on bringing it back to Nike for analysis, but... Rudy trailed off. Even getting it out of that room seems impossible, Hal interjected. So we have no choice but to handle it here, Rudy concluded after consulting with Hal. As Rudy looked at his analog ring-shaped watch, it showed noon. Just as he thought about lunch, his stomach growled. Despite 2 battles since morning, he wasn't tired. He found that strange, but right now, he was more concerned about getting outside for a meal. Rubbing his stomach as he retraced his steps, Hal spoke to him again. Master, there is someone in front of the lander. What? Rudy responded, looking in the direction of the lander, but he couldn't see anyone. There's no one there, he said. Please switch your implant to the thermograph. I also just found out through the drone's thermograph, Hal suggested. Rudy switched his left eye implant to thermal imaging mode, and a human figure was revealed in a place where there seemed to be nothing visible to the naked eye. From the infrared silhouette, it appeared to be an adult female who was hiding her figure. It's true. Someone is there, Rudy thought, blinking his eyes as he observed the woman's movements, who had also noticed him and was cautious about his actions. Is she using optical camouflage? Rudy wondered aloud. We haven't confirmed such advanced technology on this planet. It's probably the result of the magical technology available here. Magic can do that? Rudy asked in amazement. As Rudy continued to stare at her, the woman became nervous and uncertain, but it seemed that she had no intention of attacking him. Besides, he was hungry at the moment. Rudy disguised his wariness and began walking towards the landing craft. Approaching the landing craft, the hatch automatically opened, causing the woman to panic at the sight of the hatch opening without anyone present and the hydraulic sound it made. This is truly the combination of advanced science and magic, Rudy chuckled inwardly, noticing the woman's behavior. As he stepped onto the hatch ramp, he paused and turned towards the woman. Wanna have a meal together? Rudy spoke the first words he had learned in the local language, and the woman was puzzled. It seemed that Hal's translation function had a significant accent. The woman was startled by Rudy's sudden invitation and remained motionless, staring at him intently. Rudy returned her gaze, waiting for a response. After about 30 seconds of staring at each other, The woman relented and let out a light sigh, revealing her hidden form with magic. The woman was around 170 centimeters tall, about 10 centimeters taller than Rudy. She had light curly reddish-brown hair that reached halfway down her back. She appeared to be in her late 20s, with a beautiful face and sharp eyes that gave off an intellectual aura. However, what caught Rudy's attention the most was the painful burn scar that covered the left half of her face. The scar had discolored her skin to a brown color and stood out even more because her original complexion was fair. She kept it hidden with her bangs so no one could see it. She wore a knee-length one-piece dress dyed in the same deep green color as the forest. She had pants on underneath, but there were rips and stains in various places, making her clothes look shabby and impoverished. Additionally, she held a crooked cane in her left hand. "I knew you had noticed me." The woman spoke to Rudy, and he nodded. It seemed that Hal's translation application, while sounding strange, was functioning correctly in terms of understanding. "Is that metal ship that was flying in the sky yours?" the woman asked. "I'll explain later. First, let's get inside and have some food," Rudy replied. He wanted to gather information about the planet from the woman, but his intense hunger was his top priority at the moment. He invited the woman to dine with him as a way to appear harmless and maybe even gain her trust. "Your way of speaking is all messed up." "But are you inviting me to eat with you?" the woman asked. "Don't worry about how I'm talking. I'm just starving. Either eat with me or leave." "Decide quickly," Rudy replied. The woman couldn't help but stifle a laugh at Rudy's unique way of speaking. However, the tense atmosphere between them immediately dissipated. After some hesitation, the woman's curiosity got the best of her, and she followed Rudy into the landing craft. Naomi, who had been invited onto the landing craft, sat in the dining room, looking perplexed. She had never seen furniture with such a unique design before. If she looked up at the ceiling, there were no lamps, yet it was still illuminated. The chairs she sat on and the table in front of her were also made of unfamiliar, strange metal. Moreover, the beverage the peculiar boy had offered her, coffee, was so black that she suspected it might be poisonous. The cup it was served in was made of what looked like marble, a luxury item that Naomi immediately recognized, causing her to gulp nervously. "What is this place?" "He seems to have all sorts of rare items that even the royal family can't get their hands on. I don't think it's poison, but I want to know what the drink he served me actually is." So, Naomi spoke to Rudy, who was cooking in the back. "What is this drink?" "Coffee." "Do you not drink it?" "What is this coffee?" "I've never even seen it before." "I'll be there in a moment." With that, Rudy brought several small containers from the pantry and placed them in front of Naomi. "If it's too bitter, add this." "What is this?" "Milk and syrup." "Syrup? Sugar?" Naomi didn't know that syrup was a mixture of glucose and fructose, not sugar, but Rudy, who had no knowledge of the ingredients in syrup, mistook it for sugar based on its sweetness. "You don't know?" "I don't know, but it's sweet." Rudy tilted his head as he answered and then retreated to the back again. Naomi picked up the container placed on the table and brought it close to her face to examine it. She didn't know what it was made of, but it was soft and sturdy, and there was a slightly protruding part that seemed like it could be opened by pulling it. However, she wanted to know what the drink tasted like before trying to open it. Naomi lifted the cup and sniffed the coffee's aroma. As she did, a fragrant smell stimulated her nostrils. Could it be that this coffee, despite its appearance, is actually delicious? With that thought, she took a sip. Bitter. At the moment she drank the coffee, Naomi screamed and quickly added the milk and syrup. Ch8. Rich and hearty flavor. The dishes that Rudy brought with his drone were various Chinese dishes that Naomi had never seen before. "Did you make these?" Naomi asked. "Shrimp chili, 8 treasure vegetables, sweet and sour pork. And these are Chinese dishes with rice and egg soup." "I wanted something hearty to eat," Rudy replied with a smug expression on his face. However, in reality, he had only added seasoning from a food manufacturer's cooking mix to quickly make the dishes. "The smell seems delicious," Naomi commented. The aroma wafting from the dishes on the table aroused Naomi's appetite. But she hadn't forgotten that she had just failed to drink the coffee that was served earlier. Maybe this food also tasted bitter or spicy, based on the aroma alone. As Naomi was hesitant, Rudy piled a large amount of food onto her plate and placed it in front of her. "Please enjoy," he said. Ignoring Naomi, Rudy began to eat the food hungrily. Naomi was perplexed when Rudy offered her food with a "please enjoy." There were no spoons or forks in front of her. How was she supposed to eat? When she looked at the boy in front of her, she realized that this food was supposed to be eaten using 2 sticks skillfully. Naomi tried to imitate him and picked up the chopsticks, but 1 stick slipped and fell onto the floor. "Ah!" she exclaimed. Before Naomi could pick up the chopstick, the drone approached and extended an arm from its body to pick up the chopstick. Then, it brought something tied to the end of the chopsticks from the back and handed it to Naomi. "Is this okay to eat with?" Naomi asked. The drone didn't answer Naomi's question and moved to the corner of the room and stopped moving. Could that metal ball flying in the air be some kind of golem? Naomi couldn't thank the unknown entity and shrugged her shoulders before using the chopsticks with the attached string. "I see. With this, I won't drop the sticks like before and can eat normally," she thought. Naomi secretly observed Rudy as he ate his meal. "From the way he's eating, it doesn't seem like there's any poison. Besides, it would be impolite not to eat anything after being invited." With that in mind, she made up her mind to eat. First, she decided to try the shrimp chili. She picked up the crustacean ingredient coated in the orange sauce with her chopsticks. As she swallowed and took a bite, a spicy flavor was followed by sweetness, and the food's chewy texture and sourness spread in her mouth. "What is this?" "It's delicious." Naomi was impressed by the dish's taste after just 1 bite and concentrated on eating the dishes in front of her. 8 treasure vegetables consisted of various vegetables, eggs, and pork, all of which were seasoned with a complex flavor and a thick texture that made it delicious when served hot. The sweet and sour dish was fried in oil, possibly pork, and was served with carrots and green peppers, which tasted sour yet sweet and salty, with a thick texture. The sourness heightened her appetite. All of the dishes were something she had never tasted before. For the past few years, Naomi had only eaten stews with salt and a little bit of herbs. It was heavenly delicious for her. Rudy and Naomi quickly finished the abundant amount of food. Rudy brewed some pu'er tea, which he believed was suitable for after Chinese food. They both drank tea and smiled, feeling satisfied. "I've never tasted anything like this before. It was truly delicious," Naomi said. "You're welcome," Rudy replied. "Come to think of it, we haven't properly introduced ourselves yet." "I'm Naomi, and I live around here," Naomi said. "I'm Rudy," Rudy replied. Rudy tilted his head at his own words. He thought he had said I, but apparently the language setting of the translation had mistakenly converted I to I am. He could have corrected it quickly, but Rudy found it amusing, so he decided to leave it as it was. "So, I want to ask you a few things, is that okay?" she asked. "Sure, go ahead," he replied. "First, I want to know, who are you?" Rudy was puzzled by the question. He didn't know how to answer when asked about his identity all of a sudden. "Are you an alien?" she asked. Rudy tilted his head and explained where he came from. "Is space the place where the sun, moon, and stars are located?" Naomi asked. "What?" Rudy never expected such a basic scientific question in response. As Rudy was surprised, Hal, who had been listening to the conversation, spoke to Rudy's electronic brain. "Master, was it okay to talk about coming from space?" "I see no harm in it." "Is there a settlement around here?" "I cannot confirm from above." Which means Naomi, who lives alone in the forest, is unlikely to spread the word. Her face is probably scarred, which is why she lives in seclusion. "Understood." While Rudy answered Hal's questions, Naomi observed Rudy closely. "You look like an ordinary human, but from what I saw, I don't sense any mana in your body. Can you use magic?" "I don't use it." "Can you tell me more about magic, Naomi?" "Well, it's something people fear me for," she said with a self-deprecating smile. Naomi closed her eyes and focused. Then, she whispered a spell and her body blurred out of sight. "Wow!" Rudy clapped in amazement as Naomi reappeared, looking embarrassed. "Illusion magic is essential for living in the forest," she explained. "Tell me more about the different types of magic," Rudy requested. "Well, as thanks for the meal, I'll teach you." According to Naomi's explanation, there are 8 types of magic: earth, water, fire, wind, illusion, demon, light, and dark. Everyone has innate qualities for each type of magic, and some people can use certain types while others cannot. To cast magic, one needs to recite a spell and use the mana stored in their body. The power and amount of mana one possesses is determined by their innate qualities, 80%, and training, 20%. Mana is also present in the air, and it naturally replenishes in one's body, but eating can speed up the recovery. The recovery rate varies depending on a person's innate qualities. Naomi had exceptional mana recovery and storage capabilities, which allowed her to use all types of magic. Therefore, she was a famous figure known as the Witch of the Abyss or simply Abyss, feared by many. Abyss. I didn't give myself that name. The person who named me that should try calling themselves that once. It's so embarrassing, Naomi replied with a grimace when Rudy commented on the cool nickname. Meanwhile, Naomi observed Rudy closely, amazed that he wasn't surprised by the title Witch of the Abyss. Apparently, he didn't know who she really was. In fact, Naomi was once known as the strongest magician in history before retiring to live in the forest. She watched Rudy with interest, curious about his reaction to her past. Ch9 History of the Stars. By the way, you came out of the labyrinth. But did you encounter the spotted beast? Naomi asked, causing Rudy to tilt his head in confusion. Presumably. The labyrinth refers to the crashed spaceship, but what is this spotted beast? What spotted beast? In that labyrinth, there's a man-eating beast with spotted fur that's been there for hundreds of years, impervious to both weapons and magic. Most people who enter the labyrinth are either killed and eaten by the beast, or they flee in a panic. But Rudy emerged from there with a calm demeanor. I want to know what he was doing in there and whether he encountered the spotted beast, Naomi explained. I see, there was a spotted beast, but I beat it up. I went in for investigation, Rudy replied. Naomi furrowed her brow at Rudy's response. Did he mean that he had defeated the beast? However, she couldn't sense even a trace of magic from him, and he didn't look particularly strong. Could there be a powerful golem or something else backing him up? What kind of investigation? Naomi asked. It's a long story if I explain it all. Rudy hesitated. If that's okay with you, I'd like to hear the details. I'm simply curious. I've retired to the forest because the outside world is too noisy, but living in isolation can get dull without stimulation, Naomi explained. Naomi's self-centered reason for wanting to know made Rudy blink a few times, but he decided that it wouldn't hurt to tell her, and began to explain the reason for his journey to this planet. If that's the case, I'll go ahead and tell you. I'm actually lost in space, Rudy said. Lost? In space? Naomi repeated in confusion. That's right, the universe is lost. No, wait. Wrong, I'm lost in the universe, Rudy corrected himself. I don't know about that, but is space really infinite? Naomi asked. The universe is infinite. And vast, Rudy replied. Infinite and vast. I can't even imagine it, Naomi said. That's why I use the gate. I can warp through space in an instant, Rudy explained. In reality, such a thing doesn't exist, but is it like using a magic door to travel to another location? Naomi asked. Rudy nodded in agreement with Naomi's analogy. That gate, the spaceship. When I tried to warp, something went wrong. I was sent to a different location and can't return. By chance, I ended up near this planet, Rudy explained during his story. Wait, Naomi suddenly interrupted, putting her right hand out to stop him mid-sentence. May I ask a question? She asked. What is it? Rudy replied. Is this planet where we live one of the stars that shine in the night sky? Naomi asked. Rudy thought it was a strange question to ask, but then Hal spoke directly to Rudy's electronic brain. Master, is she talking about the geocentric model? Hal asked. What's the geocentric model? Rudy asked. It's a theory that people believed in long ago before humans went to space. The theory states that the universe revolves around a planet like Earth, Hal explained. What a joke, Rudy replied. Unfortunately, it was an actual theory that existed, Hal responded. Seriously? Rudy was taken aback. All right. Seeing is believing. Display the satellite images of Naomi's planet on the monitor, Rudy commanded. Yes, Master, Hal replied. Hal transferred the planet's images being observed by Hal's satellite from Nike to the monitor in the dining room. What? This is my planet. The appearance of a planet, Naomi exclaimed in surprise. As Naomi stared in disbelief at the swirling white smoke-covered blue and green globe on the wall monitor, Rudy fell silent, seemingly deep in thought. Rudy is explaining about the planet that appears on the monitor, but Naomi is so captivated by the beauty of the stars that she is not paying attention to his explanation. This is the planet where I live now. But if what he's saying is true, Wouldn't the underside of the planet be upside down? I don't understand. Why don't people on the underside of the planet fall off? The planet is gravity. Or rather, gravity exists because of the planet. What is gravity? It's simple. I'll explain it to you. Rudy taught Naomi about universal gravitation and basic mechanics in response to her question. It's truly amazing. I never thought the world was like this. Not even a little. Rudy was surprised by Naomi's sparkling eyes as she came to understand the concept of universal gravitation and wondered if he was a genius. Naomi learned about the laws of the world that she had never known before. She realized that the world was a round planet that revolved around the sun. One rotation of the planet was 1 day, and one revolution around the sun was 1 year. The reason for the seasons was because the planet was tilted. It was fascinating. Truly fascinating. I never realized that I was living on such a beautiful planet. As Naomi gazed at the beautiful planet on the monitor with an enraptured expression, Rudy spoke to her. Let's get back to our conversation. Oh, that's right. I was in the middle of listening to Rudy's story. Naomi told me, the humans on this planet and myself, we're similar, right? So I went on a spaceship to investigate. A spaceship? So, the maze I thought I was in was actually the same thing as the spaceship you came on. And it's not told me, it's tell me. Told me. I'll fix it. Anyway, even though the design and era are different, that spaceship is from 1200 years ago. Naomi looked surprised at Rudy's words. Perhaps we came to this planet from space. Is that what you're thinking? I don't have any concrete evidence yet, but it's highly possible. Ha. That's amazing. So interesting. Maybe my ancestors were also aliens. Naomi suddenly burst out laughing. Rudy worried if she had gone insane due to the incomprehensible expression on her face. After laughing, Naomi wiped away her tears and began to talk about the history of the planet. According to ancient documents that I studied when I was young, it seems that humanity once faced near extinction. Tell me more about it. Tell me, please. Rudy prompted her to continue with the interesting story. As far as I know, there was a type of ancient magic that existed until 800 years ago. The magic used a completely different system from what we have now, and it was notable for activating magic using tools rather than incantations, Naomi explained. Could ancient magic be referring to guns and drones? If so, there might have been a possibility of technological remnants for 400 years after the spaceship's crash, Rudy thought. As Rudy was pondering it, Naomi continued speaking. But then, 800 years ago, suddenly monsters appeared on this planet and almost wiped out humanity with their overwhelming strength. I believe that the ancient magic was probably the same as the tools on this spaceship. Due to the devastating damage caused by the monsters, we lost the science of our time when we were defeated. Rudy nodded in agreement with Naomi's thoughts. I want to confirm something. Are humans still fighting against the monsters that appeared 800 years ago? Could it be that the monsters are also extraterrestrial beings? Goblins. They look similar to invaders from a different galaxy than our own Milky Way. Speculation from here, probably from a different ship, a different time. Estimated to have arrived on this planet 800 years ago. What were they here for? That is unknown. However, monsters with space science. If they had it, humanity would have been wiped out. On the contrary, it's strange that we're still alive. Upon hearing Rudy's response, Naomi crossed her arms and put her hand on her chin, pondering. According to the literature, a plague gradually spread among the monsters, and most of them died. Later, it was written that the monsters crossed the sea to the eastern continent where their base was located and were engulfed in a giant flame, as if they had angered the gods. Rudy had a suspicion about the plague mentioned in the conversation. The mana of this planet kills those who came from space. Kill? To be killed. Does mana kill people? Mana is a deadly virus without immunity. What is a virus? Rudy briefly explained the concept of a virus to Naomi. I see. So the monsters that came from space died because they had no immunity to mana. Then, what about the monsters that are alive today? Probably their bodies naturally developed immunity, by chance. I see. But Rudy, are you okay? I got vaccinated, so I'm fine. Vaccinated? It's a medicine. I see. But if such medicine existed, why didn't the monsters that came to this planet use it? That's still unknown. We have to investigate. This is just speculation, but the AI at the time probably didn't realize that mana. Could kill. AI? Naomi asked about AI, but explaining it would take too much time. and Rudy wanted to keep the existence of Hal a secret, so he decided not to say anything. If it's too much trouble to explain, let's drop it. If you don't want to talk about it, then let's leave it. Rudy thought Naomi would persist, but she seemed to understand his intention. She shrugged and grinned, as if to say, tell me some other time. So, what are your plans now, Rudy? I need to investigate. It will take time and tools. We should set up a base camp here. Starting now? It will take about 4 hours to finish. Can I help? It's okay, you can just watch. Can I observe? I don't mind. Naomi smiled happily at Rudy's permission. CH10. Naomi's magic. The two stepped out of the landing craft. Naomi's heart was filled with anticipation for what was to come. Using the wireless connection of the electronic brain, Rudy opened the rear hatch of the landing craft. Shortly thereafter, a truck with an arm emerged from the craft. On this planet, when humanity was threatened with extinction, civilization was reset once, and the only sources of power to move things were horses, donkeys, and cows. Naomi was amazed by the unmanned truck. Furthermore, a composite of heavy machinery descended from behind the truck. The composite heavy machinery moved towards the creation point of the base camp and began leveling the ground with a loud noise and tremendous force. Excited by the sight of the loud and powerful machinery digging holes in the ground, Naomi pulled on Rudy's sleeve. Rudy, what is that? They're digging holes in the ground. Rudy turned around and was taken aback by Naomi's excitement. Ah, that's a truck and a heavy machine. They're building a base camp by order. It's like a golem, but it seems smarter and stronger than a golem. While Naomi was excitedly talking non-stop, Rudy, who did not know about golems, wondered what was so exciting about it and watched her out of the corner of his eye. As the two watched, the composite heavy machinery finished leveling the ground and the truck finished transporting the materials. Next, the composite heavy machinery grabbed the materials and began assembling the base camp. Amazing. It's being built so quickly. Naomi's voice overflowed with excitement at the sight of the machinery's work. Building the base camp was simple, as it only required assembling pre-made walls. However, as Naomi was born on this planet, she was not aware of this fact. In her concept, a house was something that was made by people's hands and took a long time to build. The composite heavy machinery and drones were constructing the base camp. The heavy machinery lifted and transported materials one after another, while the drones extended their arms to perform tasks like screwing and fastening. Naomi watched the construction scene without getting bored, but suddenly lifted her head and stared at the forest. They're here after all. What's here? Rudy asked in response to Naomi's muttering. I thought monsters might come with all this noise. And sure enough, they're here. At Naomi's warning, Rudy changed his left eye implant to a thermal graph. Dozens of creatures hiding in the forest were captured on the thermal graph. There are some behind us too, but don't turn around. Is that magic? You figured it out? I used earth magic to pre-plant the roots. Wow, that's convenient. That was an interesting thing to show me. So as a thank you, I'll take care of those creatures. Naomi raised her right hand and began chanting. Blue flames appeared in her palm and enveloped her hand. Isn't it hot? Rudy asked. Not at all, Naomi replied with a sharp smile at the corner of her mouth. As the two waited, monsters began to appear one after another from the forest. Goblins, overweight orcs with pig-like faces, and even large wolves-like monsters were present. There were more than 20 of them. Furthermore, according to information from Hal who came later, there were the same number hidden behind them. Are you okay? On your own? Rudy can just watch, Naomi replied with a snap of her fingers, then threw a small flame from her right hand. The flame she released gained speed and hit a goblin, instantly engulfing it in flames. The goblin rolled on the ground, trying to extinguish the fire, but it only spread and eventually died. The other monsters were intimidated by the sudden death of their comrade, but Naomi's flames continued to attack, engulfing them one after another. Rudy was impressed, thinking that it was like a guided napalm bomb, and analyzed Naomi's magic. When Naomi produced the flame, Rudy was worried about the forest catching fire, but the flame didn't spread to the surrounding vegetation. Why doesn't the fire spread to the trees? Rudy asked. Well, you see, the flame I created using my mana isn't real. I commanded it to only burn the mana of the monsters, so it won't spread to the surroundings, Naomi explained. Magic with guidance and direction? That's convenient, Rudy exclaimed, impressed with Naomi's explanation. However, only Naomi could do it. Other magicians on this planet could not even direct their magic properly, let alone give it direction. Well, using the same magic again is boring, so let me show you something different, Naomi said, turning around and waving her wand. Then, multiple water balls appeared in the air. Naomi closed her eyes and began chanting, "All right, go." The water balls burst, hitting the monsters hiding behind the two of them. The water enveloped the monsters' faces, and they tried to gasp for air but couldn't. Unable to remove the water stuck to their faces, the monsters suffocated and died one after another. Naomi turned to Rudy and asked, "What do you think?" "That was so cool," Rudy exclaimed. "I know, right?" Naomi replied, closing her unscathed right eye and winking at Rudy. After defeating the monsters, Rudy temporarily halted construction of the base camp. He then gathered the monster corpses lying around the square with a truck and dumped them into a pit dug by the multi-purpose heavy machinery, burying them with dirt. "I thought the aftermath would be a hassle, but this is easy," Naomi remarked, impressed as she watched the heavy machinery process the corpses. "Yeah, speaking of which, if you're planning on leaving the forest and becoming an adventurer, even such small fry monsters can earn you money if you bring back specific body parts," Naomi explained. "Adventurer?" Rudy asked. "Yeah, adventurer," Naomi replied. According to Naomi, there was a profession called adventurer in this world. The job description ranged from odd jobs from a town's general store to escorting people on the road, hunting monsters attacking villages, collecting materials in dangerous places, and so on. It seemed to Rudy that it was a job similar to a self-employed mercenary. Even though he wasn't particularly short on money, why would anyone want to put themselves in danger? Rudy, who aimed for an easy life, had absolutely no interest in the profession of an adventurer. "I'm not interested," Rudy replied. "I see." Naomi shrugged her shoulders without saying anything else. CH11 Side effects of doping. Although there was a monster attack, the base camp was completed by 7 p.m. "I can't believe you built this never-before-seen structure in just 4 hours. It's incredibly sturdy. No matter what monsters attack, it won't break," Naomi said. Even as the sky darkened, Naomi didn't leave and instead knocked on the walls of the base camp and went inside, marveling at its construction. She returned to Rudy and praised it. "This person doesn't intend to leave," Rudy thought to himself, and then received a message from Hal on his electronic brain. "Master, the base camp has been completed, so I will return the landing craft to Nike. The next scheduled arrival is tomorrow at 11 a.m. "Understood. First, I want to confirm if the AI is alive. Send a spare AI maintenance drone over here," Rudy replied. "Yes, Master," Hal responded. The landing craft's engines roared as it floated in the sky. Naomi, who was exploring inside the base camp, rushed outside when she heard the noise. "What happened?" she asked. Naomi was stunned as she saw the landing craft, which was over 150 meters long, floating in the air. "It's really flying," she said in disbelief. The floating landing craft ignited its engines and quickly rose in altitude, flying off into space. "Did that ship go to space?" Naomi asked. Rudy nodded in agreement. "I'd like to go there someday," Naomi said, gazing up at the landing craft as it became a star in the sky. "What are you going to do now?" Rudy asked Naomi. Even though Naomi could use magic, Rudy wondered if it was safe to send her home alone in the forest at night, where monsters roamed. "Are you planning to kick a woman out into the night like this?" Naomi glared back at Rudy's question. "It doesn't matter either way." "Just kidding. I'm tired from everything that happened today, so I'll go home now. I'll come visit again tomorrow since we're neighbors. Take care." "Bye-bye." Rudy waved his hand towards Naomi as she walked towards the forest. She didn't turn back but waved her hand as she disappeared into the woods. She was an interesting person, Rudy thought as he watched Naomi leave and enter base camp. Since he hadn't done much in the afternoon, he made udon noodles for dinner, thinking it was good enough. Nike, which was carrying materials to the developing planet as part of its mission, had an accident, and there was 10,000 people's worth of food stored in the warehouse for a year, so there was no problems with food. After dinner, Rudy took a shower and lay down in his elliptical coffin-like bed. He underwent a full-body scan and blood test to check the progress of the vaccine. As a result, his body showed an abnormal reaction. The oxygen concentration in his blood increased, and his muscle strength, stamina, and fatigue recovery rate improved. As a trade-off, his calorie consumption increased, which he had vaguely been aware of. He looked back on his day while looking at his medical data. He had walked in the forest, fought against goblins, searched for AI, walked around the spaceship, and fought against a beast and met a human. Despite all that activity, he wasn't really tired. However, he was starving to death. It's probably a side effect of the vaccine. It was unexpected, Hal said. You can't have unexpected side effects from a vaccine, Rudy responded. The data didn't show any abnormalities. When Rudy made a remark, Hal, sounding perplexed, made an excuse. There are no issues at the moment except for hunger. No abnormalities aside from that. What about the effect of the mana? There's no problem with that either. The mana that entered the body is extinct and doesn't remain in the body. So how long will this condition last? According to the data, once Master's body develops immunity to mana, the symptoms will improve. And when will that be? Assuming everything goes as planned, it should be in 6 months. That's quite a while. Anything else? In that case, I recommend exercising the body. Rudy furrowed his brow at the unexpected response. If I do that, won't I just get even hungrier? We can't be certain until we check again tomorrow, but at the current stage, exercising the body can provide 8 times the effect compared to normal. Is that so? At this stage, it's speculation, but it's most likely correct. Alright. I'm free anyway, so I'll exercise my body. Then I'll load the room machine onto the landing craft. Okay, got it. Well then, I'll go to sleep soon. Good night. After finishing his conversation with Hal, Rudy quickly fell asleep. The next morning, Rudy woke up at 8 o'clock, took a shower, and made breakfast. He prepared toasted bread, consommé soup, bacon and egg, and a salad with tuna. Rudy's usual breakfast consisted of quick and small servings such as cereal or a stick bar. But considering his current condition, he decided to eat more. As he ate the crispy toasted bread with butter, he heard a knock on the base camp door. He looked at the monitor showing the surveillance camera installed on the door, and he could see Naomi knocking on it. Although there was a button next to the door that rang a chime, she didn't know about it. Rudy shrugged his shoulders while looking at the monitor. Using the electronic brain, he remotely opened the door, and Naomi, who was full of energy in the morning, came in. Good morning. It smells delicious. Want some? It's not want some, it's will you eat with me? But sure, I'll have some. After hearing Naomi's response, Rudy sent the recipe to a drone. He let the drone prepare Naomi's breakfast while he continued eating his own. What's your plan for today? Munch. Gulp. Around noon. The landing craft is returning. After that, we'll go into the dungeon. Are you going into the dungeon? Can I come with you? I don't mind. I see. I've been holding back from entering because of that spotted beast, but if I go with you, I can see what's inside. Did you try to take it down before? I did, but that beast has an abnormally high magic resistance, so magic doesn't work on it. Not understanding what magic resistance was, Rudy tilted his head. Magic resistance is resistance to magic, as the name suggests. The flames and water I showed me yesterday were not real. I said that they were made by my mana, do you remember? Rudy nodded in response to Naomi's explanation. If the opponent's magic resistance is high, the flames or water will disappear. Unfortunately, unlike real ones, they're made of mana. I see. That spotted beast has abnormally high magic resistance. Even if you hit it with flames, it won't burn, and if you try to suffocate it with water, the water will disappear as soon as it touches it. It also has a hard skin that weapons can't penetrate, and a mouth that can crush anything. Many adventurers tried to face it, including me, but no one could win. So here's my question, Rudy. How did you defeat it? Saying so, Naomi leaned forward, waiting for an answer. I blew up its mouth. And blew its head off. Blow up? Rudy couldn't use magic, right? It was a real explosion. Hearing that it was a real explosion, Naomi burst out laughing. Ha ha ha. I see, a real explosion. That was unexpected. Right, humans on this planet, including me, know about magic explosions, but we've never seen a real one. Upon hearing that, Rudy thought to himself, magic is a mysterious thing. CH12, Younger Disguise. T/N. Hey guys, sorry for not posting. My laptop broke, literally, and it was beyond repair, so I had to get a new one, which took me some time to select. I will be uploading at least 5 chapters this week. The The exterior is crispy, while the interior is fluffy. The melting butter is just perfect, Naomi exclaimed in amazement as she ate the soft toast. What's on this salad? She asked. Tuna. Fish preserved in oil. I'm not sure, Rudy replied. And the dressing is delicious, Naomi added. It's Thousand Island dressing. How do you make it? I bought it. I don't know how to make it. It seems that Naomi was impressed with the tuna salad. She finished her meal and enjoyed the coffee Rudy had poured for her. At first, I thought it was poison when I took a sip, but once you get used to it, it's delicious, she remarked. Unbeknownst to Naomi, the coffee she was drinking had 4 packets of sweet syrup, a sweetener she couldn't usually get her hands on. Rudy, who preferred black coffee, frowned at the empty syrup containers, finding it too sweet. So, about that labyrinth, I mean, spaceship. What's it like inside? Naomi asked. Naomi. Have you never been inside it before? When I participated in the subjugation, we lured the spotted beast out and fought it outside. According to Naomi's account, the spaceship was discovered by adventurers exploring the forest 8 years ago. The adventurers entered the ship and encountered the spotted beast. They fought, but the spotted beast killed half of their companions, leaving them crawling back in a desperate state. Upon hearing the story from those adventurers, others believed that if such a powerful monster existed, there must be incredible treasures to be found. Many people attempted to challenge the spaceship and were killed by the spotted beast. As the rumors spread, nobles volunteered to subjugate the spotted beast, accompanied by numerous private soldiers. Naomi was hired for money and joined as a mercenary. Thinking that fighting inside the spaceship would be disadvantageous due to darkness and narrow spaces, the soldiers successfully lured the spotted beast outside. However, even fighting outside, the spotted beast, immune to physical attacks and magic, killed many, resulting in their retreat. Only 6 out of 35 private soldiers survived, and half of the hired 50 mercenaries and adventurers, including Naomi, survived. The noble, though alive, lost all of his wealth. Afterward, it was discovered that the spotted beast, which couldn't be harmed by physical attacks or magic, was one of the monsters that nearly wiped out humanity 800 years ago. Since then, no one dared to approach the spaceship. Rudy is amazing for defeating such a ferocious spotted beast all by himself, Naomi said, her mouth curving into a smirk. 800 years ago, Rudy muttered. That's right. Based on yesterday's conversation, you mentioned that the monster from 800 years ago might have come from outer space, Naomi said, recalling their previous discussion. Rudy nodded in response to Naomi's remark. It's just my speculation, but what if that spotted beast also came from outer space? In response to that question, Rudy crossed his arms. He began speaking, recalling what he had learned about the spotted beast in the past. It's likely that you're right. In the present era, productivity is low, so it's no longer used. But in the past, there were enemies, combat organisms. Perhaps it was that. I thought so. By the way, how long is the lifespan of those combat organisms? For the long-lived ones, they can live up to around 1,200 years. Naomi blinked in surprise at Rudy's response. They sure do live quite a long time. Do they? Well, think about it. They can live for the same amount of time as the history of humanity on this planet. Indeed, that may be true. The Galactic Empire has a history of over 60,000 years. Therefore, Rudy didn't consider himself as living for such a long time. Could it be that living in space extends one's lifespan? There's no point of comparison with this planet. How old are you, Naomi? I don't know if it's considered a straightforward question to ask a woman's age in this culture, but, well, I don't mind. I'm 28. 28? You're young, Rudy murmured in surprise at the unexpected age. So, how about you? Naomi asked. I'm 81 years old. Boo-ha! Naomi exclaimed. As soon as Rudy answered, Naomi spewed out the coffee she had in her mouth. Cough, cough. 81? You're way too old to look young. Rudy shrugged in response to Naomi's astonishment. In front of him, a drone with an arm was holding a cloth and meticulously wiping the dirty table. When I was born, I had anti-aging surgery. I will live for 500 years, Rudy explained. That's a really long life, Naomi exclaimed. When I was born, my job was already decided. I was chosen for transportation work. That's why I have longevity due to anti-aging, Rudy elaborated. Do your parents not say anything about it? Being born with a job already decided? Naomi asked. I don't have parents. I'm from the Empire, but I was born through artificial insemination, Rudy replied. What is that? Naomi asked, unable to comprehend artificial insemination. Rudy proceeded to explain artificial insemination to Naomi. So basically, you were born not from parents but in a test tube, and you were raised with tools. Naomi summarized. That's right, Rudy nodded. The universe is far beyond my imagination. But, how should I put it? From my perspective, not having parents feels lonely, Naomi expressed. Everyone around me is the same. So I don't feel lonely. Besides, there's a bigger issue. The issue before that, the universe is too vast. I don't have the opportunity to meet people, Rudy explained. You don't meet people? Naomi asked. As long as I live in space, I rarely get to meet people, Rudy clarified. Don't you meet people through business transactions or something? Naomi inquired. I don't meet them in person. We communicate through the net, Rudy replied. The net, like exchanging letters? Naomi asked. Naomi speculated that the internet might be like a form of letters, relying on her intuition. Rudy pondered what letters were and recalled a distant history where people used pen and paper to communicate with each other over long distances. Letters. I guess that's probably a good analogy, Rudy agreed. It feels too convenient, but at the same time empty. And not having the freedom to choose your occupation, having it decided the moment you're born, is, how should I put it, unfortunate? No, that's not it. I wouldn't go as far as calling it unfortunate, but I can't understand it, and it doesn't sit right with me, Naomi expressed, scrunching her face in thought. Rudy shook his head in response to her words. It's not like you're forced to stick with the predetermined occupation. However, the government support disappears, Rudy explained. Support? Naomi asked. The space vessel loan support, job placement assistance, tax deductions. All of that disappears. It can be tough, but if you have something you want to do, it's only natural to face a challenging environment, right? Rudy replied. I see. Still, even in the harshest circumstances, I would choose freedom, Naomi stated. Upon hearing Naomi's remark, Rudy wondered if she was a masochist. CH-13 Power Restoration Operation Dash. The landing craft descended from space to the ground right on schedule. Master, we have arrived. Thank you for your hard work. Rudy remained seated and contacted Hal through the electronic interface. It seems they've arrived. I will bravely sacrifice myself inside. Sacrifice? No, it will take me 30 minutes to prepare. Understood. I can't sit still, so I'll wait outside. Rudy, come quickly too. With those words, Naomi eagerly dashed outside. She's just like a child. Rudy watched her figure as she left and then discussed the next steps with Hal. After finishing the communication with Hal, Rudy stepped outside. The rear hatch of the landing craft was already open, and devices to restore power to the spacecraft and the base camp's equipment were being transported outside one by one. Rudy looked for Naomi and found her observing the cargo handling operation. She tilted her head, wondering about the items being taken out. As Rudy walked toward the spacecraft, Naomi noticed him and interrupted her observation, running up to him. It's amazing, you know. The sleds were floating in the air and carrying a lot of cargo. Rudy looked at the landing craft. There, a cart hovered 20 centimeters above the ground, transporting cargo to the base camp. A cart floating with anti-gravity. Friction? No. Because there's no friction, it floats. In other words, it slides through the air. Slides smoothly, like on a bald head. Naomi burst into laughter at Rudy's response. Master, preparations are complete. As Hal reported, a cart approached Rudy. The cart was loaded with a small generator, specialized repair drones, and a large number of repair kits. How long will it take to restore the power? I can't say for sure without examining the actual equipment, but I think it will take at least 2 days. Understood. I'll explore the interior of the ship during that time. Yes, Master. After ending the communication with Hal, Rudy turned to Naomi. She was looking up at the spacecraft. Hey, Rudy, such a large ship can fly in space and the sky. It's amazing just to imagine. No, it can't fly in the sky. Huh? Is that so? Naomi directed her gaze towards Rudy upon his response. This ship is too huge. Once you land on a star, you can never go back to space, and you can't fly in the sky anymore. This is an emergency landing, Rudy said, pointing to the ground behind the spacecraft. I see. Indeed, the ground is uneven, Naomi replied. It's not normal. The reason for landing on a star. I think it was probably due to trouble. Huh? I think so. Investigating the cause is also part of the plan. Understood. I'm also curious about why our ancestors came to this star. In that case, let's go inside. Saying so, Rudy and Naomi entered the spacecraft together. The interior of the spacecraft, without electricity, was dark. Naomi took out a torch from her bag that she had slung over her shoulder. Wait a moment. I brought a torch. I'll light it now. That's unnecessary. Rudy commanded a drone to turn on its light. The previously dark corridor became illuminated. Naomi shrugged her shoulders at the drone, throwing the unnecessary torch on the floor, which clattered and rolled. This golem is really high performance. Golem? This is a drone. Oh, I see. It's unusual to name a golem drone. Nice to meet you, drone. Naomi misunderstood due to the cultural difference of naming. Rudy found explaining what a drone was too troublesome, so he left her misconception untouched. Rudy walked briskly towards the power room of the spacecraft, while Naomi examined the floor and walls, marveling at the unfamiliar materials. These materials are completely unknown to me. I don't know either. Don't you know either, Rudy? Naomi blinked her eyes in surprise. I won't bother researching every little detail. But what if it breaks? At that time, we'll take it for treatment. Besides, I can't board a ship made of materials that break easily. It's too scary. You mean repairs, not treatment. You could say that. Along the way, they encountered a dead terminal in the corridor, causing them to get slightly lost without the navigation display. Other than that, they didn't face any particular troubles, and Rudy and the others arrived in front of the power room they were aiming for. We've arrived. What's in here? It's the power room. We need to restore the ship's power. And what exactly is that power? Explaining it was difficult, so Rudy frowned. Something like magical mana. Understood. Then let's go inside. Rudy slid open the hydraulic door and entered the room. Inside the room, a huge power generator was installed to supply power to the entire spacecraft. Naturally, the power generator wasn't running, and the room was silent. This is also a massive structure. It's a Zephitron power generator. Explanation isn't necessary. I probably wouldn't understand even if you told me. It requires specialized knowledge of helium. Rudy responded that way, then approached the power generator and contacted Hal. I've arrived at the power room, but this is quite an outdated model. It's because technology has advanced so much in the past 700 years. The war between the Galactic Empire to which Rudy belonged and the invaders from other galaxies had advanced all technologies. As a result, the spacecraft from 1,000 years ago has become extremely outdated, not even seen in museums. Technology progressed due to the war. So, can you fix it? It's quite different from Nike's electron furnaces, but the basic configuration is the same, so I can manage somehow. Understood. Begin. Yes, Master. In response to Rudy's command, 3 drones floating on a trolley rose into the air. They approached the power generator and started their inspection. Something has started. Excited by the sudden movement of the drones, Naomi exclaimed. It's not treatment. It's the pre-repair inspection. How long will it take? For everything? About 2 days. During that time, I can go check other places. Naomi was delighted to hear that she could explore other areas. Ch14. Incoherent language usage. The real reason. When Rudy entrusted Hal with the repair of the power generator, he and Naomi explored the inside of the spaceship together. It's really empty, isn't it? Naomi remarked. After exploring several rooms without finding anything, Naomi frowned. I haven't found a single chip. Money? Naomi asked. A chip is a chip, Rudy replied, misunderstanding that he was referring to memory storage while she was talking about money. As the two continued to explore the spaceship, they stumbled upon a plaque that read Captain's Quarters. Maybe there's something here, Rudy said with little expectation. Let's investigate it, Naomi replied. They entered the room and began searching, dividing the work between them. Rudy dismantled a terminal left on the desk and extracted the memory storage. He loaded the data into a drone. However, most of the data on the memory storage, which had been over 1,000 years old, was corrupted. Only a small portion of the navigation log could be read. It would take time, but since it was the only lead he had, he planned to recover it later. Rudy stored the memory storage in his bag. Hey, What do you think this is?" Naomi called out. Turning towards her voice, Rudy saw her holding a smartphone, tilting her head in confusion. "A mobile device?" he replied. Rudy didn't use smartphones for tasks such as calling, emailing, taking photos, or recording, as those could all be done with his electronic brain. However, over 1,000 years ago, electronic brains were not as advanced as they are now, and smartphones were still in use. "What's that?" Naomi asked. "A handy notebook," Rudy explained briefly, trying to describe a smartphone in one word. "A notebook." "I have no idea how to use it," Naomi said, completely unaware of the concept of a notebook due to the underdeveloped paper culture for taking notes in their civilization. "Hand it over," Rudy demanded. The smartphone Naomi was holding was probably the captain's device. Rudy received the smartphone from her and examined the side to check the charging connector. "The standard is too old, it won't charge," he said, frowning at the unfamiliar connector. Even if it could be charged, the wiring inside would likely be in poor condition, making it unusable right away. "I'll take this." "In return, I'll give you another one," Rudy said, remembering the high-performance smartphone among Nike's cargo and promising to present it. "What you did just now was receiving, not taking." "Just the fact that I could come to this place is enough, so feel free to accept it," Naomi said, smiling. Rudy returned the smile with a grin. "Thank you," he said. After leaving the captain's quarters, they decided to head to the cockpit at Naomi's request. "Sorry to drag you along. It was originally part of the plan, so I don't mind," Rudy replied, telling Naomi not to worry. As they walked down the corridor for a while, Naomi started a conversation. "Hey, Rudy." "Yeah?" "I've been wondering since we met yesterday, why do you use such erratic language?" "Erratic language?" "Yeah, it's a mix of rough and polite, it's all over the place," she explained, shrugging her shoulders. Well," Rudy pondered how to answer Naomi's question, crossing his arms. "If you're troubled by it, you don't have to answer." "I'm not troubled. It's just complicated to explain," Rudy replied. "Is there such a complex reason behind it?" Rudy shook his right hand left and right, denying it. "No, it's not that complicated." "No, that's not it. Actually, I was planning to hide the fact that I'm an alien," said Rudy. Upon hearing that, Naomi's eyes widened. "When we first introduced ourselves, you suddenly blurted out that you're an alien." "Well, I thought this forest was uninhabited. And by the way, I thought Naomi was a loner." "Don't call me a loner. I live alone in this forest, but I have social connections." "Not a loner?" "Well, anyway, the problem is that it's not good for me to be known as an alien. So, let's keep it a secret." "Well, even if I tell others, no one would believe it. But fine, I understand. I'll keep it quiet that Rudy is an alien." "I'm counting on you." Rudy felt relieved as one forgotten problem was resolved. "Now, let's get back to the topic. Why is your language so messy?" "The installed language doesn't work. It's a language I learned from a place far from here, different from the local language." "Why is that?" "To avoid being recognized as an alien. I may lack common sense, but I want to appear as a mysterious traveler who can deceive others." "I see. So, that's why your language is so chaotic." "Yes, but the truth is, if I wanted to, I could fix it easily." "Then why don't you fix it?" "I actually quite like this way of speaking." Rudy shrugged. As he said that, Naomi looked perplexed and burst into laughter, clutching her stomach. "Ha ha ha. Oh my, ha ha ha. Is it that funny?" "Oh, it's a masterpiece." "So, you intentionally use that kind of language?" Naomi wiped away the tears from the corners of her eyes and asked, to which Rudy nodded. "Yes, you could say that." Naomi found his response amusing and laughed again. "Did Rudy come to this forest with the purpose of investigating it?" Naomi asked. Rudy shook his head in response. "Nah, it was a coincidence. I didn't plan to find this spaceship." "I see. But when I landed on this planet, that creature attacked me out of nowhere." "What creature?" "A dragon." "Can you understand the translation?" Naomi nodded in confirmation. "A dragon, huh?" "I understand. Those creatures have a strong territorial instinct, so when they see something unusual, they immediately attack." "I happened to find this place while escaping from the dragon." "Well, there are many things to say about surviving an encounter with a dragon, but let's continue the story for now." "When I got out of the spaceship, I saw Naomi. I was surprised." "I was surprised too. But at the same time, I thought." "What did you think?" Rudy stopped and turned around, staring directly at Naomi's face. As Naomi looked into the eyes of Rudy, a beautiful boy with odd-colored blue and green eyes, her heart skipped a beat. "I caught a convenient woman," Rudy said. "What kind of expression is that?" Naomi protested, raising her voice at Rudy's remark. "What kind of expression? I am not attracted to you, Naomi." "Is that so?" "I'm sorry for being an ugly, scarred, older woman." While Naomi called herself ugly, if it weren't for the burn mark on her face, she would be considered beautiful by general standards. However, Rudy lacked sexual desires due to regulations on artificial insemination. "Are you ugly, Naomi? Are you trying to look younger than me?" "No, you're young." The aesthetic sense of people on this planet is different. As Rudy retorted, Naomi blushed and turned her face away. "I don't care about my appearance. Please continue with the story." "That's right. Since I lack knowledge of this planet, I wanted to capture. No, I mean, secure a local human." "Naomi, being alone in a remote place, was convenient for me. So, inviting me for a meal was for that reason?" "Luring with food. It's the basic principle of a hunter." "That's a terrible story." Naomi sighed, burying her face in her hands and looking up at the ceiling. CH-15. New threat. By the way, why did you suddenly stop? Is something wrong? The cockpit. The control room. It's here. Rudy pointed to the door beside him. "You should have said that sooner." Rudy shrugged his shoulders at Naomi's remark. "Well then, here we go." Rudy put some effort into opening the door, and a bright light dazzled their eyes. As their eyes adjusted to the light and their vision returned, Rudy inspected the interior of the cockpit. It was about the size of a tennis court. The original seats were replaced with damaged control panels. The front and ceiling screens had large holes, presumably from the crash, allowing sunlight to pour into the cockpit. Over the years, rainwater and mud had flowed in through those holes. In the center of the cockpit, flowers bloomed, filling the air with a sweet fragrance. Ruins and nature, two contrasting elements intertwined, creating a surreal world that captivated anyone who beheld it. If it's in such a terrible state, obtaining data seems impossible. Rudy gave up on obtaining data due to the condition of the cockpit. Naomi was mesmerized by the sight of the cockpit, but she noticed an unpleasant smell that didn't belong in this place, wrinkling her nose. "Rudy." "Yeah? Do you smell something?" Rudy imitated Naomi and wrinkled his nose. Then, amidst the scent of flowers, a faint animal odor reached them. Spotted beast. "Could it be that there's a second one here?" Furrowing her brow, Naomi chanted a spell in a low voice. Meanwhile, Rudy switched his left eye implant to thermal vision and scanned the interior of the cockpit. As they confirmed through their respective abilities that there were no living creatures nearby, they lowered their guard. "It seems a spotted beast isn't here after all." This place was probably its den, and the scent was lingering. Rudy nodded to Naomi and let go of the grip of his short sword, which he had been holding lightly. Despite knowing that spotted beast was not present, the two of them approached the center of the cockpit without neglecting their vigilance. It was the place where sunlight shone the brightest, and flowers bloomed profusely, concealing a large hole in the floor hidden by grass. "It seems like this is where the beast entered. When no one is inside the spaceship, it might have come out from here to get food. If this place is its den, it's a shortcut. There's a big possibility." "Naomi, you were living nearby." "It's amazing that you're safe." "Even if you say nearby, it's still quite far from here." "It must have been outside of Beast's territory." "So, what do we do?" Naomi glanced sideways at Rudy. He frowned and stared into the depths of the hole in the floor. "I have a bad feeling, a tingling sensation. I'm going inside." "Then wait just a moment." Naomi stopped Rudy, who was about to enter the hole. She closed her eyes and activated her magic, her face contorting slightly. "Probably, there is a spotted beast inside." "Are you sure?" "I told you before that magic doesn't work on the spotted beast." "Within the range of the search spell I just used, there's only one place that I couldn't confirm." "That's a characteristic of a magical creature that magic doesn't affect." However, what? "I don't know if it's asleep or dead, but it's not moving at all." "The beast I know has a sharp sense of smell and would attack if it detected the scent of prey, even if it's a distant location within the spaceship." Rudy nodded in response to Naomi's words, recognizing the situation. When he entered the spaceship, the beast approached him for a fight as soon as he went a little deeper. It was because it had keen senses and quickly noticed Rudy's presence inside the spaceship. "It is unaffected by magic." "Naomi, Stay here. No, I'll come too. Even if direct magic doesn't work, there might still be a way. Naomi shook her head, dismissing any concerns. I won't care even if you die. With those parting words, Rudy jumped down into the hole. Left alone, Naomi shrugged at Rudy's words and followed him into the hole. The hole they descended into led to an air duct wide enough for a person to pass through. As they continued through the duct, they came across a broken ventilation door on the floor. The two looked at each other and nodded before jumping down further. The place they landed after the jump seemed to be a storage area, according to Rudy's estimation. It was about the size of a basketball court, and in the center, there was a large cocoon covered in threads. What is that? Naomi squinted her eyes and became wary when she saw the cocoon. The location of the cocoon coincided with the place where her magic didn't work. The cocoon had a diameter of about 4 meters. Threads extended from the ceiling, floor, and walls, hanging in the air. And at the center of the cocoon, an eerie red light was pulsating and moving like a heartbeat. Be careful. It seems dangerous, Rudy said, getting ready and gripping the hilt of his short sword. Could it be the offspring of the spotted beast? I'm not specialized in that, so I don't know much about them. But I've heard that combat creatures don't have reproductive functions. Combat creatures has become outdated even before Rudy was born. Therefore, they were not used in wars, and Rudy didn't possess detailed knowledge about combat creatures. Even now, my magic doesn't affect the cocoon in front of us. But to me, it looks like that cocoon is absorbing mana from the air, Naomi said. Mana? Because it's sucking it in, it might not be affected, Rudy replied in his peculiar manner, easing Naomi's tension. Then, where is the mana that it's sucking in going? The creature slumbering inside the cocoon seemed to instinctively perceive the two intruders in the room as a threat, as it began to stir and show signs of waking up. Ch 16. Birth of a Demon. Suddenly, the red light from the cocoon intensified, accompanied by a rapid heartbeat. I'm too lazy to think, so I'll just blow it away. Feeling the danger, Rudy pulled out a dart-shaped grenade from his bag. You're being rough, but I don't hate that idea. Naomi also stepped forward with her staff, starting an incantation for a spell. A crack appeared in the center of the cocoon, and a hand emerged. Grabbing onto it, the hand had 8 fingers, each adorned with sharp claws. O flaming serpent, burn everything in sight. Naomi completed her incantation. Flames surged forth from the tip of her swung staff, encasing the cocoon in a serpentine trajectory. Did it work? Rudy's voice prompted Naomi to shake her head. It resisted. It didn't work. The flames that enveloped the cocoon didn't spread but dissipated as if vanishing. Another hand emerged from the cocoon, and the creature within tore it apart, revealing its form. It's a plant-like creature, Rudy said. As Rudy described, the being that emerged from within was a monster with a human-like body. It stood about 2 meters tall, with a muscular frame covered in gray fur. Its face resembled a budding flower before blooming. Upon seeing their opponent's true form, Naomi, unlike the nonchalant Rudy, broke out in a cold sweat and swallowed nervously. It's a demon. A demon? What's that? It seems to be a monster that existed in ancient times. I only know about it from literature. Could it be that a non-reproductive combat organism gave birth to an evolved offspring? Perhaps the mana of this planet is influencing it. Rudy analyzed the situation. Drawing a bow from his back, Rudy prepared an arrow fitted with a grenade. The demon spread its hands towards Rudy and Naomi. As its palms split vertically, bloodshot menacing eyes appeared. Capturing the two with its palm eyes, the flower buds on its face split into 8 sections, revealing a massive mouth. The mouth was filled with sharp, thorn-like teeth, wide enough to easily swallow a human head, and drool dripped onto the floor. Suddenly, a slicing sound cut through the room. Rudy's arrow struck the demon's head, and at the same time, the grenade exploded, blasting the demon's head away with a thunderous roar. What? You just revealed your weakness. Are you an idiot? Rudy muttered in exasperation. In contrast to his nonchalant attitude, Naomi stood there with her mouth agape, her gaze alternating between Rudy and the headless demon. What was that just now? A grenade. TNT mama. No, it's different. It has 6 times the power when converted. I don't understand this TNT conversion, but that's amazing. Naomi wiped the cold sweat from her forehead, impressed by the power of the grenade. But we defeated the demon with that. If we let it rampage like this, The damage would. Wait a moment. It's not over yet. Rudy interrupted Naomi's words. As Naomi looked at the cleared smoke, she saw that the blown-off face of the demon was slowly regenerating. What? It can regenerate even if its head is blown off? Surprised, Naomi shook her head. Normal animals? No, different. Discard the idea of it being like a regular animal. Its head. Just the mouth. It must have a separate brain. I see, I understand. Naomi, can you handle a bow? As soon as Naomi understood, Rudy asked her a question. To some extent, I can handle it. Then, take this. Rudy handed Naomi a bow and arrows with grenades attached to them. Attach these to the arrows, and then? No, not that. When you shoot the arrows, they explode. I understand that, but what about you? Naomi. While you prepare, I'll engage in close combat. Close combat? Are you going to fight it directly? That's dangerous. Experience is my extraordinary skill. Rudy replied to Naomi's warning with a line he remembered from a hero that appeared in an old video. Then, he unsheathed his short sword and rushed towards the demon. The demon, whose head had been blown off, noticed Rudy's presence and extended its left arm, swinging down its long claws. Rudy parried the demon's claws with his short sword and swiftly turned his wrist, thrusting a blow towards its regenerating head. The demon raised its right arm and deflected the attack with its claws. As the clash between claws and sword seemed imminent, both of them stepped back. Then, simultaneously, they leapt forward, and a fierce exchange of blows ensued. Inside the room, the intense clash between Rudy and the demon resounded with metallic sounds. I thought he was just a child even when I asked about his age. Naomi held her breath as she watched Rudy and the demon battle. According to the literature Naomi had read, demons were impervious to weapons and magic. Their extended claws could slice through anything, be it a sword or armor. They devoured humans, their appetite seemingly insatiable. When they first appeared 800 years ago, they caused the collapse of over 10 cities, an event referred to as a disaster. Rudy's swordsmanship, confronting the disaster head-on, was not only extraordinarily skilled but also beautiful, requiring many years for even seasoned warriors to reach such a level. Naomi was on the verge of being mesmerized, but she quickly began attaching a grenade to an arrowhead. Can such a small object really cause such an explosion? I wish someone could teach me how to make it, but it's probably impossible. And about using a bow, I'm not that good. However, if I use magic to shoot, I won't miss a single shot. Naomi began chanting her magic without aiming her bow, waiting for the right moment to release the arrow. Even if Rudy's attacks landed, the demon realized they only caused minor pain and left no wounds. In response, it began relentlessly striking back without bothering to defend. This isn't good. Rudy winced at the intensified attacks from the demon. Although his reinforced clothing with shock-absorbing sheets protected him from the demon's claws, the demon's attacks surpassed that defense, causing him considerable pain with each blow. Rudy deflected the demon's claws with his sword, then leapt to the left. However, he slipped on a cocoon thread that lay on the floor. Taking advantage of Rudy's opening, the demon delivered a kick to his abdomen, driving its foot into Rudy's belly. Ugh! A kick with enough force to create a hole in an ordinary human's torso. However, Rudy's reinforced clothing absorbed the impact, though he still let out a groan as his breath was knocked out. Damn it! Rudy glared back and grabbed the demon's leg. He twisted his body and fell to the floor. The move he used was a professional wrestling technique called dragon screw. With the demon's leg caught, both Rudy and the demon fell to the floor. In that moment, the demon's fixed leg couldn't keep up with the momentum and twisted its knee. Intense pain shot through the demon's right knee, causing it to roll on the floor. If its head weren't regenerating at the moment, it would have let out a scream. Get back! At Naomi's shout, Rudy distanced himself from the demon. Simultaneously, an arrow released by her magic pierced the demon, and the grenade exploded. Rudy was also blown away by the blast, but thanks to shielding his face with his arm, he managed to escape unharmed. On the other hand, the demon, despite its tough fur absorbing the shock of the explosion, couldn't prevent the actual burns caused by the fire. The demon's body was charred and inflamed, with its fur burnt all over. Ch17. Choice of survival. Rudy, are you okay? It hurts, but I'm fine. Responding to Naomi, Rudy staggered to his feet. In a distant place, the fallen demon writhed in agony on the floor. His skin was inflamed in several places, emitting white smoke and the sizzling sound of burning flesh. If it weren't for the demon's head undergoing regeneration, he would have healed instantly with his superhuman recovery abilities. However, he had to prioritize the regeneration of his head at the moment, leaving the healing of other areas for later. Naomi mentioned that he defends against physical attacks with his body hair. Can I take him down now? Rudy stared at the struggling demon attempting to stand up and took a deep breath to compose himself. With his short sword at the ready, he engaged his accelerated electronic brain and entered the zone. In a slow-motion world, only Rudy moved. Approaching the motionless demon, he swiftly slashed with his short sword, as if performing a quick-draw technique. Then, he slipped behind the demon and sheathed his short sword. As the zone ended, the demon's body froze. His torso began to shift, and his body split in two, with the lower half remaining upright while the upper half collapsed to the floor. It's over. Rudy spoke in a nonchalant tone, but Naomi's brain struggled to comprehend the current situation. What was that just now? It was so fast I couldn't see anything. Rudy disappeared, and in an instant, he was standing behind the demon. It's hard to believe, but he seems to have cut it in an instant. But the opponent was that demon. Physical attacks shouldn't work. And that sword, it's abnormal. Rudy, what on earth are you? Despite appearances, I'm quite strong. Rudy shrugged his shoulders and joked, which made Naomi's slight fear towards him dissipate. That's right. No matter how strong he is, Rudy is still Rudy. He's a boy older than me, who came from a distant universe, speaks in a funny manner, and is skilled at cooking. Ah, that was impressive. Naomi responded with a smile, and Rudy smiled back, winking at her. What do we do next? I'm hungry. Let's go back to the base camp. Rudy was not only exhausted from the intense battle but also starving to the point of feeling like he would die. You eat a lot for someone with such a small body. It's just how my body is now. Rudy grinned in response to Naomi's exasperation. Are you going through a growth spurt? I have a lifespan of 500 years, you know. 10 years is nothing in terms of growth period. Angel coefficient. Angel? No, not that. Angle coefficient. It's too high. Angle coefficient? Naomi tilted her head in confusion, not familiar with the term. Rudy started walking towards the air duct, intending to leave the storage room. Wait, what about that? Naomi called out, pointing at the fallen demon's corpse on the floor. Bury it in the ground with the drone later. It's burnt, but it could fetch a good price as a material. Can something like that be sold? Rudy raised an eyebrow upon hearing it could be sold. It's a demon material known only from ancient texts. It could fetch a fortune, and you could even commission someone to make your own equipment out of it. Rudy pretended to ponder Naomi's explanation and consulted with Hal through his electronic brain. What do you think? He asked. The current equipment is superior, Hal replied. In that case, we don't need it, Rudy concluded. I'll have the drone collect a small sample of its cells later. We won't need anything else. After finishing his discussion with Hal, Rudy turned to Naomi. I don't need it. I'll give it all to you, Naomi. You're the one who defeated it. Besides, I don't have any connections for selling it. And it's not good to draw attention. Saying so, Rudy crossed his arms and made a pouting face. Well, if I sold such a material, I'd become a celebrity in no time. You're acting like you don't want attention while doing attention-seeking things. Naomi smiled and thought for a moment at Rudy's words. You might be right. If you don't want it, huh? As Naomi was speaking, she felt a shock on her back. Confused, she looked at Rudy, who was surprised and staring at his own abdomen. So, she also looked down. For some reason, claws were growing from her own abdomen. Nails tore out from Naomi's abdomen, and she collapsed to the floor, coughing up blood. By her side, the upper body of the demon, whom they had thought was dead, lay. The blood-drenched claws that had stabbed her were pulled out. Despite still being in the process of regeneration, the demon opened its mouth wide, ready to devour Naomi. For years, the demon had been absorbing mana from the air within its cocoon, channeling it all into its regenerative power. As a result, even in death, it could briefly come back to life. And instinctively, it knew that by devouring the vast amount of mana Naomi possessed, it could even resurrect its lower body. Naomi. The demon attempted to consume Naomi's head with its mouth, but before it could, Rudy's kick landed in its mouth. The demon, having been hit by the flying kick, sank its teeth into Rudy's right leg. However, Rudy's sturdy shin guards and boots prevented it from tearing through. Acidic saliva began to dissolve Rudy's shin guards, emitting white smoke and the sound of burning. "Gah, my leg is burning." The pain shot through Rudy's face. Despite the pain, Rudy paid no mind and lifted the bitten leg, stomping the demon's head into the ground. Repeatedly, Rudy stomped on the demon's head until his right leg finally came loose from its mouth. Rudy gripped his short sword with both hands and continued to stab the demon's torso relentlessly, until it breathed its last. Huff. Huff. "It hurts." Rudy took ragged breaths, trying to steady himself. His right leg had been scorched, with his shin guards and pants melted away, leaving his skin blistered by the strong acid. Enduring the pain, he checked Naomi's condition. She was still alive, but the bleeding from her abdomen was severe. Judging that she would die from bleeding and shock if left untreated, he made his decision. "Hal, we're evacuating Naomi." "Yes, Master. But wouldn't it be more convenient for your existence if we let her die and hide it?" For a brief moment, Rudy wavered at Hal's suggestion but shook his head, discarding the thought. "No, we'll keep her alive. She's my friend." "Yes, Master. I'll prepare a cart to transport Naomi. Please wait here." "No, I'll carry her to the cockpit. It'll be faster that way." "Master, your injuries are quite severe." "I won't die," Rudy stated firmly and lifted Naomi onto his shoulders. "Damn, it's quite painful." The weight of Naomi pressed against his burnt right leg, causing him to grimace in pain. Nevertheless, determined to save her, Rudy began to walk. Ch18 Naomi's treatment. Rudy dragged his painful right leg, which was burned, and carried Naomi to the cockpit. Upon reaching the cockpit, a cart carrying a medical drone flew in through the broken window glass. "Master, please place her on the cart," said Hal. "No need to be told," replied Rudy. Following Hal's instructions, Rudy placed Naomi on the cart. From the medical drone on the cart, he received a syringe of hemostatic agent, which he administered through the hole in his torn robe caused by demon's claws. Rudy also got on the cart and received a painkiller from the medical drone, which he administered to his right leg. The cart flew through the air and arrived at the treatment room in the base camp. They were then stripped naked and thrown into the treatment tank. Rudy observed me soaking in the adjacent treatment tank while he remained in the therapeutic culture fluid. The healing process had begun in the cultivation fluid of the treatment tank. "Me will be fully healed in 4 hours." "By the way, Master, your recovery will take 2 hours," said Hal. "Am I just a bonus?" Rudy asked. "It's the consequence of reckless actions. Your attire absorbs impact but is not designed to withstand acid." "It's incomprehensible that you still decided to enter with your foot," Hal replied. "I didn't think there would be acid in the saliva, so it can't be helped," Rudy responded. "I want to tell you not to be reckless," Hal said. Rudy frowned at Hal's lecture. He had been listening to Hal's scolding and work reports all the while his right leg was healing. Naomi regained consciousness. In her hazy state of mind, she noticed that her body felt light. "Where is this? Am I underwater?" she wondered, floating in the bluish treatment culture fluid. She found it strange that she could breathe underwater. While she remained in a drowsy state, the treatment culture fluid drained away through the drain, and the lid of the container opened. Naomi sat up and remained bewildered for a while. But then, she remembered being stabbed by demon's claws. "The wound is gone," she exclaimed. Frantically, she looked at her abdomen, and the wound that was supposed to be there had completely disappeared. But that wasn't all. There had been a large, gaping cut from her left shoulder to her right side. But even that scar had vanished completely. "What on earth? Wait, where is this place?" "No. It looks familiar." "It's Rudy's base camp. I didn't know its purpose, but I entered this room once before." When Naomi regained her groggy consciousness, she realized she was naked and started searching for her clothes. She couldn't find her clothes, but she found a folded blue gown on the side table of the treatment tank. It was probably prepared for her. She changed into the gown and then casually glanced at the mirror hanging on the wall. There, she saw her own face, half of which had been covered by the vanished burn marks. "What?" She momentarily couldn't recognize who it was. Realizing that the reflection in the mirror was herself, she hurriedly approached the mirror. She gently touched her unscarred left cheek and tears welled up in her eyes. In her youth, Naomi had been a beautiful noblewoman. When she was 14 years old, a neighboring country suddenly invaded her own, causing her nation to fall. During the attack, her fiancé, the prince, and her parents were killed, and she was assaulted by enemy soldiers while in exile. She was about to be violated by one of the soldiers when her magic went out of control during the struggle. The magical explosion killed over a dozen soldiers who were present. However, she received a deep cut from one of the soldiers and suffered a severe wound on her face, which left her with burn marks covering half of her face. She managed to escape from the pursuers, but the price she paid was the lifelong scars on her heart and body. You're young. She was so absorbed in the disappearance of her burn marks that she hadn't noticed the changes from before her injury. Comparing her current skin to her state before the injury, it appeared fresh and supple. She then looked at her hands. The rough fingertips from her life in the forest had become smooth and beautiful. She couldn't help but stare at them. Oh, that's not the point right now. She had wanted to keep gazing at her youthful reflection in the mirror, but now it was more important to talk to Rudy. She hastily left the room. When me found Rudy in the living room, he was busy sewing her clothes with a needle and thread. Good morning. It's already evening. Evening? How long have I been asleep? About 4 hours. Just 4 hours. I thought I had slept for a whole day, but I was surprised to find that my wounds had healed in just 4 hours. But there's something else I want to know. Me sat in front of Rudy, who paused his sewing and faced her. First of all, what happened to the demon? I beat him up and killed him, Rudy said, his expression filled with sadness. I left him there. There was a possibility of regeneration, so I left him there with the other scrap and incinerated them together. That's why the materials I could have given to me disappeared. I don't really care about that. Besides, it was an enemy you defeated, so it doesn't matter to me. Is that so? I'm glad, Rudy said, relieved by Nmi's response. So, did you heal my wounds, Rudy? Can I tell you the result of the treatment? Absolutely. Nmi leaned forward, prompting Rudy to recoil as he tried to calm her down. The drone handed Nmi a cup of coffee, and once she had settled, Rudy began to speak. First, I healed the wound on your stomach that the demon stabbed. And I also got rid of the parasites. Parasites? Nmi's face twisted when she heard that there were parasites in her body, thinking it was still about the healed wounds. You were living with a big tapeworm in your belly. Saying so, Rudy turned to the side. At the end of his gaze, there was a monitor hanging on the wall, displaying an image of a tapeworm. Eek! Suddenly shown a disturbing image of a tapeworm. Nmi let out a scream. It's not harmful, but it needed to be eradicated. Hygiene management is important. Why yeah, and also, you had breast cancer, but I healed that too. Breast cancer? Didn't you have a lump between your right breast and armpit? Now that you mention it, for about half a year. Nmi pressed the indicated area and found that the lump had disappeared. It was stage 1, so luckily it was caught early. If the cancer had spread, in the middle of the forest with no doctors around, you would have suffered and died. I had an illness. It's already healed. I see, thank you. That concludes my report. Wait. The important topic of the wounds wasn't being addressed, and Nmi grew anxious. What is it? There's no report about the burns on my face and the cuts on my body. Oh, that? As a bonus. I mean, as an extra, I healed them. Wasn't it better that way, not having to be healed? A bonus? No, I'm grateful. Thank you so much. Saying that, Nmi lowered her head onto the table with both hands. CH-19, Apprenticeship Dash. I want to express my gratitude. If it weren't for Rudy, who healed my body, I would probably have died, despite the vast amounts of money I spent and the current limitations of medicine and magic. Nmi wanted to show some gratitude to Rudy. Well, I already took it. I examined Nmi's body because I wanted the human body data of this planet. For research purposes. You should say received instead of took. You could say that. But is it okay to use such means? It was valuable data. Thanks to it, I understood a lot about the human body and the flow of mana. Saying so, Rudy bowed his head. Unauthorized examination of a woman's body is an act that disregards both sexual harassment and human rights, and it could potentially lead to a lawsuit. However, Rudy managed to deceive me by pretending it was part of the treatment. I see. I want to know about it too. Instead of getting angry about having her body examined without permission, Nmi became interested in her own body from the perspective of an extraterrestrial like Rudy. If that's the case, you can ask. The result of Hal's analysis of Nmi's body revealed the following. The humans of this planet absorb mana by consuming mana viruses in their food. Once the mana enters the body, it is broken down and enters the bloodstream, where it merges with red blood cells. It circulates throughout the body and accumulates in the bone marrow and brain marrow. I see. So that's why the nobles, who have no trouble with meals during their growth period, are more skilled in magic compared to commoners. Nobles? Is this planet's social system based on feudalism? Well, it's something like that. Each country has a king, and the king and nobles handle all the administration. A dictatorship, an outdated social system. In the Galactic Empire where Rudy comes from, there is also an emperor. However, the emperor is not involved in administration, and politics are essentially separated into 3 branches. Moreover, the empire consists of hundreds of countries with their own kings and prime ministers, operating under a parliamentary system, making it closer to a republic than an empire. We've digressed. I deviated from the Tropic of Mana. In order to cast magic, it was necessary to solidify the intended direction of the magic in one's mind through an incantation. Therefore, without an incantation, magic would not be activated. Well, it's mostly accurate based on what I know. By the way, the incantation also serves as a means of controlling magic and preventing it from going haywire. Babies with magical talent release harmless mana when they cry. It seems I was one of them. I see. As Nmi provided additional explanations, Rudy nodded in understanding. So, that's all for the discussion. Thank you. I found it very informative. It was particularly interesting to learn about the storage locations of mana. The feeling is mutual. Thanks to you, I now have a higher possibility of being able to use magic. Is Rudy going to be able to use magic? I've only been on this planet for 2.5 days. Right now, I'm just struggling to resist mana with the vaccine, but I'm researching how to use magic, and I hope to be able to use it someday. You can do something like that. At that moment, Rudy seemed to come up with something and hesitantly opened his mouth. If you really want to express your gratitude, I have one request. Oh, what is it? Anything. Just tell me. In that case, if I become capable of using magic, please teach me your magic, Nmi. Rudy bowed his head, and Nmi shrugged her shoulders in response. Many people have bowed their heads and asked the demon witch Nmi for teachings, but you're the first one to say teach me while bowing their head. Is it not possible? No, it's fine. I'll teach you all the magic I know, Rudy. Smiling, Nmi bowed her head again, and Rudy followed suit. Thank you very much. I humbly requested, Master Nmi. As the two continued their conversation, time passed, and the stars sparkled in the sky. Master Nmi, your clothes still haven't been fixed. Can you stay overnight today? Come to think of it, you were fixing my clothes, weren't you? They're still in a midriff-bearing look. As Rudy spread out Nmi's clothes that he was fixing, he noticed numerous holes in the abdomen. Well, I'm not meeting anyone, so it's fine as it is, she said. Master, I failed to protect it. This is the least I can do to apologize, he replied. You're quite conscientious, she said. It's only natural as your disciple. Since Rudy couldn't finish sewing Nmi's clothes within the day, he decided to leave it to the drone. Why don't you sew it yourself? Asked Hal. I've accepted the fact that my efforts won't be rewarded, Rudy made excuses. As the drone was commanded, it undid the stitches Rudy had made. Then it started sewing again, and its stitches were even neater than Rudy's. Seeing that, Hal understood that what Rudy had said was true. Once Rudy left the sewing to the drone, he got up from his seat to prepare dinner. Master, let's have ethnic food today, he said. Ethnic? Nmi tilted her head in confusion. It's spicy, Rudy replied. Are you intentionally making it spicy? That's right. Nmi frowned, still tilting her head. Normally, she only ate dishes seasoned with a little bit of salt. She couldn't imagine what kind of dish spicy food was. If it's too spicy, it won't taste good, she commented. That spiciness becomes addictive, Rudy explained. Well, Rudy's cooking is delicious anyway. Let's give it a try. Leave it to me, Rudy replied. Rudy entered the kitchen and started cooking, filling the air with the scent of spices. The aroma stimulated Nmi's appetite, and her stomach growled. It smells appetizing, she said. Good smell, Rudy replied. By the way, Rudy, Nmi began, resting her chin on her hand while observing Rudy. You said you don't want to stand out, right? Yes. In that case, I think it was a bad idea to build a house here. Why? This is a remote forest where people rarely come. Still, there are a few idiots who try to defeat monsters here a few times a year. If they see this house, it will stand out. I see, Rudy stopped cooking and thought for a moment before speaking. In that case, after we finish the spaceship survey, let's move. Move? But where to? To your house, he said. What? Mi's face slipped from her hand, displaying her surprise. CH20. An addictive kind of hardship. Why you coming to my house? I've become your disciple. It's only natural for me to live with Master Nmi, Rudy retorted as if it were obvious, in response to Nmi's surprised inquiry. But there's no available room in the house. There is now. Besides, I've made food, so eat up. Rudy said so and brought out the prepared dishes. No, this is an important matter. I want to discuss it first. Master, care for some alcohol? Oh. If there's alcohol, I'll have some. Wait. You're trying to lure me again? Nmi glared at him and Rudy awkwardly averted his gaze. Why did you find out? As I thought. But the food will get cold if we don't eat it. You should eat first. I won't compromise on that. Fine. Fine. But I'll make sure to hear your story properly later. Understood. Rudy nodded and arranged the dishes on the table. This is tom yum kung and kapao rice. T/N. The food is the same 1,000 years later. So this is ethnic cuisine. More precisely, it's a dish originating from Thailand. Wait, originating? No, it's a dish from a country called Thailand. Upon seeing the dishes on the dining table, Nmi gulped down her saliva. Tom yum kung was a reddish-brown soup with large prawns, exuding an enticing aroma of stimulating spices. It seemed that the aroma she had noticed earlier was coming from this soup. Kapao rice consisted of minced pork stir-fried with bell peppers and onions, with a sunny-side-up egg placed on the side, all served alongside rice, accompanied by sliced cucumbers. Oh no, seriously, this looks incredibly delicious. Master, your vocabulary is deteriorating. It's because you're the one making such delicious dishes. It's my fault. I'm the one doing it. Ignoring Rudy, who was feeling a bit shocked, Nmi grabbed a spoon and scooped up some tom yum kung soup, taking a sip. Suddenly, within the intensely spicy soup, the concentrated sweetness of the prawns and the sweetness of the coconut rushed over her all at once. It's spicy, but it's delicious. As Nmi expressed her satisfaction with the delicious yet spicy dishes, her back stretched, and her body began to tremble. Next, she combined the stir-fried kapao rice with the rice itself and placed the sunny-side-up egg on top, eating them together. Basil, garlic, and seasoning sauces such as nampa and oyster sauce intertwined, creating a spicy but balanced flavor with the semi-soft fried egg, making it incredibly delicious as well. This is addictive. It's the best. Master, have some beer. As Nmi enjoyed the spicy yet delicious dishes, Rudy handed her a glass filled with beer. Thanks. Taking the glass of beer, she raised it to her lips and stared at the golden liquid inside. The color is different from the beer I know. I don't know the beer from this planet. Well, let's give it a try. Nmi took a sip of the beer. Then, the richness of the malt and the bitterness of the hops passed through her throat, delighting her with a smoothness that was several times better than any beer she had ever tasted before. This is a delicious beer unlike any I've had before. Is this really beer? It's just regular lager beer. I've never heard of this lager before. It was natural that Nmi didn't know because on this planet, lager beer, which requires low-temperature fermentation, had not yet been produced. Instead, ale varieties were predominant. Furthermore, in some regions, the hops that should be added to beer were rarely used, and there were even beers that contain poisonous herbs. For the sake of preservation, if I keep her intoxicated, I might be able to get permission to live at Master's house. While thinking that, Rudy refilled Nmi's empty glass with beer. 2 hours later. Master, I can handle my alcohol. Is that so? I think it's just Rudy who's weak. Bottoms up. Rudy, after Nmi had given him not only beer but also wine and whiskey to drink, ended up getting drunk first, spinning around with dizziness and collapsing onto the table. The evil plan had failed. Nmi, who was a strong drinker, watched his condition and thought it was not the right time to ask about the move. She poured herself some wine with a self-pouring gesture and enjoyed drinking it, looking satisfied. The next day, Nmi woke up and sat up on the soft bed. By the way, after Rudy got drunk and fell, a drone guided her to the bedroom. It's been a while since I drank that much. Living in the forest, alcohol was rarely available, and she only had a small drink during her weekly evening relaxation, so drinking this much was quite rare. Mi sat at the vanity table and looked at herself in the mirror. Looking at her face again, the scars from the burn that she once despised were gone, and she still couldn't believe it. But just because the burns are gone doesn't mean my revenge is over. Thinking back to the past when her country was destroyed, her parents and fiancé were killed, she glared at her reflection in the mirror. As Mi combed her hair with a comb, the drone entered the room holding her repaired clothes. "You've already fixed them. Well done." The drone handed Mi her clothes and lingered in place. "Are you asking me to check if it's done?" In response to that question, the drone nodded its whole body in confirmation. "Understood. Wait for me." Mi spread out the clothes and checked them. The previously damaged areas were seamlessly repaired, leaving no trace, and the finished result was as good as new without a single complaint. "It's an excellent job." "Thank you." Mi expressed her gratitude, and the drone nodded once again before leaving the room. After changing her clothes, Mi went to the living room, where Rudy was lying on the sofa with a wet towel on his forehead, looking pale-faced. "Hey, good morning." "Thanks for yesterday's treat." "Good morning," Rudy responded with a strained voice, his gaze fixed only on me. Mi shrugged her shoulders and sat on the opposite sofa. "Hangover, huh? I feel terrible." "I see, that's rough." "Well then, shall we talk?" "Now?" Rudy, in a weary state, removed the wet towel from his forehead and sat up. "We couldn't talk yesterday." "Master, you're so cruel." "Ugh." Rudy struggled to hold back the urge to vomit, covering his mouth. "I have a policy of providing strict guidance to my disciples." "Well, I just decided on it now." Sigh. Rudy let out a sigh and began talking about the move. "If you just want to support me or have a particular novel in mind that you'd like to request, please join my Ko-fi or Patreon. The links are below." Once again thank you Momo Clan.